It's time for MacBreak Weekly, our last show of 2024. Andy, Alex, Jason are all here. We're going to talk quite a bit about a new camera that Alex just can't wait to get his hands on. Could be the beginning of the turnaround for the Vision Pro. I think it might be. Also, lots of rumors about new foldable iPads, or is it a Mac? New Apple Watch Ultras, even new AirTags. All that and more coming up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 952, recorded Tuesday, December 17th, 2024. Everything smells like fresh paint. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show we cover the latest Apple news, and hallelujah, hallelujah, there is Apple news. Let's first introduce our esteemed panel, Jason Snell from Six Colors, now that he's got a purple mic.
Hello.
Muff. Could be seven. Hello, Jason.
It counts.
Good to see you.
It's one of the colors.
Oh, darn it. I forgot to wear my sweater with the magic inscription from the Lord of the Rings on it.
Speak friend and enter. It's a really bad password. I don't know what it says. I don't do Elvish, but that's a bad password etiquette. I'm sure you could talk about that.
Let's see what else
TWiT.
is on it. Is there other Elvish stuff on it?
No, it's got the fellowship and the whole thing. This is my holiday sweater. This is our last
nice
show
sweater.
of the year, right?
It is. It is.
So,
and as soon as I introduce the rest of the panel, I'm running downstairs to get my holiday sweater on. I forgot. That's Andy Inotco, Inotco.com, WGBH in Boston. I can now say Inotco.com with confidence.
Well, it's not available to the world yet, but it's
Soon.
available to close personal friends right now who are
Soon.
giving me feedback and telling me, ooh, that person died just 3 months ago. You sure you want to say that about him?
Oh,
And
dear.
Again,
No.
this could. I'm joking, of course. No. I've also decorated for the holidays. That's why I was a minute and a half late, because I thought, hey, why don't I just put some Christmas lights on the shelf behind, not realizing that I've got 1,000 watts of lights. Hopefully, when the background gets darker, maybe you'll start to see these LEDs.
They hold the place together. They really add a certain.
Well, I mean, there's 2024 is ending, on kind of an expectant note. Maybe we shouldn't be too festive. So I'm putting the lights out. I'm not turning them on.
He's half festive. That's good.
Exactly.
I like it.
I made the effort. My heart was in the right place.
Actually, I added little sparkly Christmas trees. We had a tree lighting last week.
Oh, nice.
Yes. And also, actually, Lisa said, I have lots of stuff I could give you. I forgot it was the last show of the year, so I better. Next week, we are going to do a best of. So you'll hear the best of 2024. And then we have a week off for New Year's Eve, and then we'll be back on the 8th. Let's say hello to Alex Lindsay.
Hello, hello.
officehours.global and 090.media. And a man who has probably just this morning spent $30,000.
I haven't spent the $30,000 yet, but I'm pretty excited.
Should we play the Vision Pro jingle just because this is kind of a Vision Pro?
We have
Going straight into it.
It's become a Vision Pro show now.
Yes. Getting the show
Play
off
the Vision
with
Pro
Vision
jingle.
What do you see? What do you know? It's time to talk the Vision Pro.
And what we're talking about is the pre-order availability of the Blackmagic / Apple camera. This is very exciting. This is not the software camera you have on your phone. This is a physical $30,000 kind of. Is it specifically for the Vision Pro, or it's a spatial camera?
I mean, you could use it for shooting for the MetaQuest as well. It is. It's a very high resolution, 180 camera. So this is
the Blackmagic Ursa Cine Immersive.
Yeah, 8K per eye, and 90 frames a second, and that the processing required for that much resolution at that frame rate is not trivial. So
Jiminy. So this is really a big computer with two eyes in front.
Blackmagic was getting close because they had a 17K camera that they've been working on, and so that they're very close to the same resolution for that, and so it was already there was parts of that pipeline that were already built. but it is still a huge undertaking to get this right. And there's a lot of metadata and all kinds of other things that have to be kind of managed inside of that process. So it's a pretty exciting camera, and it really solves the big problem that people have had about why you don't see a lot of this kind of content is because it's hard. It's been very much an art project. Every time we build one, I've built a bunch of these rigs. I've machined parts for these types of rigs, not personally, but I've had them machined. And getting all of this right and consistent is not a trivial problem, and it's been something that everyone had to build from scratch. And this is the first time we've seen. This is the first time someone's going to release a camera at this resolution and at this frame rate that is really built, and it's really built lockstep with what Apple needs for, or what they want for what they're doing. Now, they may still be using their own special sauce on some of their own cameras, but being able to provide this out to the to a lot of production folks. And again, when you see $30,000, some people are going to buy a camera for $30,000. A lot of people are going to rent a camera for about $1,000 a day. So $30,000 will lean into $1,000 to $3,000 a day, somewhere depending on how people schedule it. It's going to be in that range. So when you figure out your shoot, you're not trying to figure out how do I buy a $30,000 camera. That's for the rental houses to buy. So, but it's, knowing Blackmagic, this is as little as they could charge for it. Like they're not known for high margin, production. It's an incredible lift to build what they're building there.
And they worked with Apple for this, yes?
Yeah. I mean, I think Apple had already been kind of working with at least parts of some of their cameras to figure stuff out that they were doing, and I think that there was I think Apple saw the need and the opportunity to get the rumors are anyway that Apple had saw the need. They have a need, which is they got to make it easier for people to generate content. So a lot of us can use our phones, but that's still kind of just cute. Those are cute little tests. Being able to have a camera that can actually start to take full advantage of it's not even as much resolution as the headset can handle, but 8K per eye is a lot further down the path than we have been in the past. So it's a really, really, really exciting camera. I mean, it's probably in my opinion, one of the most exciting cameras. I'm not saying, like we've seen lots of great cameras coming out over the last couple of years, but this is probably the most exciting, different camera that we've seen in maybe a decade. So it's interesting.
So you're saying the Vision Pro can do better than 8K 90 frames?
It can support higher resolution than I don't know if it can do more than 90 frames a second, but I believe that it can process higher than 8K per eye. But
it doesn't have screens that could do that, right? I mean, the screens are 8K per eye, aren't they? What are the screens on that?
I think that they can resolve a little bit higher than that.
Really? Wow.
I believe. Yeah. And so it's
no
not
wonder
much.
it's $3,500. That's amazing.
Yeah. And so, but they'll definitely be able to resolve to the 8K per eye at 90 frames a second. And that's kind of that's where things get pretty interesting, where you start to really feel like you're there. I mean, a lot of us are hoping that the next higher end version of the Vision Pro will probably go to a little bit higher resolution and probably 120 frames a second is what we're hoping. A lot of us are hoping to see a little bit more frame rate out of it, because there's a place, there's a jump from about 96 frames a second where things look a lot different to the human brain. And so that's what we're all hoping we get over that hump sometime soon. But I think that it's a really, really exciting camera. So
42.85 Alex's, according to John Ashley.
Yeah, I mean, it's again.
So you wouldn't buy one unless a client came to you and said, "Hey, we need to do a show in spatial."
I have been pitching clients on this camera for the last 3 months. I got people very close.
So if a client buys it for you, that's different.
Or you rent it, or again, you don't have to get someone to buy it. I mean, if you're doing a project, I mean, because
you're not going to do more than 30 days of a project, right? I mean.
Right. I mean, you might, and then that's when you realize over the next year I'm going to do 30 days of production. Then you start thinking about buying the camera. Right. But I think that what I look at is I've got I have a lot of shoots, and the budget might be $80,000 for the shoot, and if it's that number, making it 81, or me just eating $1,000 to put the camera in to shoot as test footage. Usually what happens is that a lot of us will bid on a production, will eat some of the margin, which, and do it, show it to the client, and the client Once they see it, they're like, "Oh, we would like to have that all the time."
It comes with this lens, but is it interchangeable? Could you put it?
I don't think it is. I don't think that it's built. I mean, I wouldn't want to interchange it. It might be interchangeable. It has the buttons on it that would look like it could be popped on and off. The thing is that the sensitivity of the registration of those lenses is so tight.
I wouldn't want to mess with it.
I would tend to want to leave it the way it is, but it could be something where you could get a slightly less or more field of view. So you could have lenses. Lenses can go further than 180 degrees. Right. They're capable of doing, I think, 220, 240. Some lenses can get around you. And so there's a potential that, and if you're going to spend this much on the camera, I think a lot of people would love to see a version that they could do it. But I think these are going to be all part of the camera. I don't think they're going to be interchangeable.
Blackmagic says that they've created a new format for Blackmagic RAW for this camera. It will shoot in that format natively. And of course, if you're using DaVinci Resolve from Blackmagic, it will all kind of suck up all the data that's being provided.
Well, and that's one of the things that's really pretty exciting about this is that where this gets really interesting is that Blackmagic has Resolve, and this is where you see the power of them building the camera and the post-production pipeline at the same time, which nobody else is doing. So no one else building an editing package and color package and effects package makes cameras. so that was fine. It was somewhat interchangeable when we were talking about just 8K cameras or 12K cameras or 6K cameras, and we'll just take our Arri footage and put it into Resolve. But when you start talking about something like this, where there's warping and there's interaxial versus interocular, and there's metadata and there's all these other things, having the camera be able to save exactly and knowing what you need to deliver on the other side is a very powerful vertical integration that really puts Blackmagic in a particular location for this kind of production. So it'll be really interesting to see.
Oddly, Final Cut does not support it, right?
Not yet. I mean, I think that we'd probably assume that Final Cut will be able to handle this in the future. It's not. I think that right now we're seeing Final Cut
specialized. Linear editing software is okay for immersive video. I would think you'd want something specialized to it.
Well, you have to remember that when you're cutting it, you're just cutting, eyes, and in that case. It's not like we're doing a 360 and trying to pan around. We're just cutting what those eyes look like. Now, one of the things that they've said, I think, in this press release is that Resolve will be able to preview this into a Vision Pro. So if you have a Vision Pro and Resolve and you're working on the footage, you'll be able to look at what you're cutting and looking what you're.
So the director's in the editing room now, looking in a Vision
Pro, like seeing how this works. Right. And again, that vertical integration between them is going to be really important. And part of it's also being able to support the metadata. The metadata is really important because you have the metadata of the interaxial distance and a lot of the information that's coming into the camera, but you also have to match that up with the interocular distance, which is different for every person. You put that headset on, you push a little button and it lines up your eyes, so the headset knows what the interocular distance is of every person who puts on the headset.
That's part of the setup. Yeah.
They also know if you put a lens in, they know that you put a corrective lens in. And they know what it is. And so that data, and again, when you're paying $3,500, that's part of what this $3,500 is part of, is all these little bits and pieces that the other headsets don't have, is that they're paying attention to all those pieces. And so. Anyway, it's hard. We don't know how well it will work until it comes out, but it's pretty exciting. I think you do a pre-order because you want to see how many of these are we going to have to make in March, by the end of March, because they're going to want them in the field before they get to NAB. I think they're definitely going to want to show them at NAB, but I think they're going to want to get them into the field as well. So.
Interesting. So it says they'll take orders now with deliveries to start in early 2025. You think that's more like March than January?
Oh yeah. I don't think so. I think it's the day before. I think the
day before NAB.
Day before they got to be shipped. People have to get them the week before, have to have them in their hands at NAB, or I don't think that anybody at Blackmagic likes to stand in the booth. Anybody, but Blackmagic has had a history sometimes of things taking longer than a year after they announced it, and they got really good at not having that happen for a while.
That's
but
a long time to wait.
but we're waiting for there's 2110 routers we're still waiting for. so
it says it has 7 terabyte, comes with 8 terabytes of network storage. Is that like Frame IO, or what does that mean? 8 terabytes of high performance network storage built in.
I think that I don't know. That's not a.
If you said high performance storage without the word network, I might say, oh, that's a lot of hard drive. But it's network, which sounds like it's Frame IO more than.
Well, they have their own Blackmagic cloud as well. Right. So when they say network storage, it could be something that's networkable.
In the cloud.
It's a storage unit that's there, and it can be easily. What that may
says
refer
you
to.
can capture
I'm not 100%
2
sure.
hours of video on the camera. Yeah,
and
that's wild.
Well, and you have to capture a lot of it. One of the problems we have, for instance, I have the 12K. I've got a couple of the 12K cameras, and one of the problems that we have is that the throughput on the output of I can get a drive that's really fast, but I can only get a gig a second out of the camera. Yeah. And so I can when I'm doing 8K 120, I have to compress it 12:1 to just get it out of the camera. Like there's no way to there's no way to record it.
Right.
So the internal storage becomes super important, and like many of the other Blackmagic cameras, it can be accessed from the net. So there's an Ethernet port on the
10 gigabit Ethernet
right.
port
So imagine this being able to be published quickly.
Oh, I'm sorry.
To the
4 10 gigabit Ethernet ports. Apologies. 4. And that's so you got to have different workstations connected to it. They envision people doing post-production as you're shooting.
Well, that's having four of them. That's
for the
separate.
Client, the director, the producer, and the studio exec.
You could do that, and you could also. There's a potential there that you could be using all of those to grab frames, because
interesting.
When you're talking about that kind of resolution, you're talking about an enormous amount of data. In fact, 40 gigs is not anywhere near what that.
No, it's 2 58.7 megapixel sensors.
Right. So you're talking about an output of, it probably wants something closer to 100 gigs a second uncompressed. So by compressing so what's coming out of the back of there is going to be a compressed format.
It does create a proxy file in H.265, I think, or something.
Right.
264.
And people like me, what we're really interested in is what do we get live?
Right.
So it's got
you could shoot live with this, you think?
We don't know. We don't know what the live support is going to look like, but we're taking, a lot of us are tracking it. I think it has two 12G, it has an A and B 12G output, which would be 4K. So some of us are hypothesizing that we're going to get potentially two 4K 60 outputs out of the back of the camera that we could do left, right eye on, which would be great for 4K. If that's the case, that would look great. It wouldn't be as good as what's being recorded on the camera, but if we were able to get that, but again, all of us are making this stuff up right now. We don't know until we have the camera that we have a press release, and we have a lot of us guessing about what those are. But
I imagine this was the topic of the day on office hours.
We talked about it over the weekend. Yeah. that was a big, definitely. But it is, it's a one of a kind camera, and it is, and again, for the folks that get in early, all of us who have been doing this kind of immersive work for the last 15 years have been, again, putting these things together. It's like building your own car. And this is the first time we're like, hey, how about we give you, it's still a Model T probably compared to where we'll be in 10 years, but it's like, hey, here's a whole car all in one place, and you don't have to build it yourself. But that's really what it feels like.
Has this been a bottleneck, do you think, for Vision Pro production?
Well, it's been a huge bottleneck for, I don't know what all the bottlenecks are for Apple producing more content, but it's been a huge bottleneck for everyone else. Does
Apple have something like this in-house?
Well, I think that what we've seen is Apple building a lot of their own solutions in-house.
Building a car.
You have to remember the person who worked on the Sphere camera works at Apple now. The Next VR folks are at Apple. So there's a lot of people who engineering wise really understand cameras and understand this kind of camera.
Yeah.
So there's an incredible group of people that know what they're doing at Apple and really know this down to the down to the hard tacks. And then Blackmagic, of course, has been building cameras now for 10 or 15 years. And the thing about Blackmagic is they're usually a little bit more adventurous than everyone else, so they're, like when we do, there's a bunch of shoots that I do that I use Aries and I use, Sony Venices. But when we're doing testing, I almost always use Blackmagic because the cameras are much more flexible, and I still shoot a lot on Blackmagic cameras when it matters. And so I'm using a lot of those cameras because the cameras are far more flexible when it comes to frame rate, far more flexible when it comes to integration. So they're kind of the perfect camera company to work with Apple to figure this stuff out. And so it's going to be, but I think that it will unpop. I think there's a couple things. It'll be a lot of different people doing things with the cameras. I think that Apple has made a bunch of decisions on their immersive stuff that's been, some of us wouldn't agree with, with some of the stuff that's come out. It's going to allow a lot of us to have our own take on it without having to, building the pipeline for this is not trivial. It's why Facebook built their own camera for a while. It's why, and did not, necessarily succeed at it. It's why Google built its own camera. Everyone builds their own cameras because this is a new world that isn't a mass market. And this is the first time that the third party has been, Red was talking to Facebook about building an immersive camera, but never actually built it, other than the spec that was at some, one of the conferences, one of the F8 conferences. So this is the first time we're seeing it getting really close to the ground, and I think that it really could revolutionize not only for Apple, but for the MetaQuest and so on and so forth. I think that there's going to be a lot more great content and a lot more options. You'll see a lot more people be a lot more experimental, because the other thing is when you build these art projects, they're very heavy and you can't just pick them up and move them. And so it's this kind of,
this looks pretty portable.
This is a camera that we can put this on. I don't know why we put it on a Steadicam. That'd make you sick, but you can put it on, a tripod. You can put it on.
You just answered your own question there, Alex.
Yeah, exactly. I was just like, well, that would be horrible. We did that. We did it with Ozo. We put the Ozo, my brother's a Steadicam operator. We did put an Ozo on a Steadicam. And it's really funny. What we did is we went, my brother does this thing when he wants to relax that he turns the thing sideways. He just turns the whole thing because it reduces the weight. And we walked really slowly, then turned it sideways. You could always tell when people got to that part of the demo because they ripped the headset off. They're like, whoa, and so we were like, oh, they're done. So anyway, so I think that again, a lot of us are really excited about this camera, and those of us who have worked in this for a long time, because we know how hard it's been to do this. So if Blackmagic can do what it says, all they have to do is provide what they said in the press release, and we're all going to be pretty excited about it. And so,
and as owners of Vision Pro, people should be excited too,
huge.
Right?
Yeah, you're going to see concerts.
This is maybe what we've been waiting for, which is some way of doing.
If you look at
up to now, it's been Apple and Apple only, pretty much.
Right? Yeah, it's just been. There's other people with the capabilities, but it's just been really heavy and it's expensive, and it takes a team to show up to run the camera system. And this is something I can throw in the back of my car, go to a concert venue, and I shot the Verve Pipe in Mill Valley at Sweetwater. I could take this camera down,
right.
Just set it down and record, and it might be. I'm already talked to a couple venues about. We're thinking about during the sound check, once they're all kind of lined up, let's do a couple songs to an immersive camera.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah. And so that's the kind of stuff and then post that. That's great for the band and for the location and so on and so forth. And so I think that there's, but that's the kind of thing I can't do with the kit camera. The kit camera, I have to get there for 3 hours and get it set up and sync it and make everything work. And this is something that I can theoretically with I can set it down on a tripod and be shooting, 10 minutes later. You're going to see a lot of great footage. This is the most exciting addition to the Apple Vision Pro that affects all of immersive, not just the Vision Pro, because Apple is basically, this wouldn't happen without Apple figuring out what they needed and without Blackmagic being willing to move forward. For immersive content in general, this is probably the most exciting camera the most exciting, not even just camera, but anything that we've seen in probably the last decade.
And it feels like it takes the content creation of this out of, it must be basically an Apple joint, right? Where Apple's got to be, I think everything we've seen on the Vision Pro up to now has been something that Apple has basically made. Even if, I mean, even on one level or another, Apple has held the keys to that, and it's great.
And paid for
it's and paid for sure. This opens the doors, right, to other options and other capabilities, and also, like you said, Alex, other platforms, so that somebody could create an immersive thing and have it be on Vision Pro and on MetaQuest and other platforms that that are forthcoming, like the Google XR platform. Like that's good, right? That opens a lot of potential beyond the house generated material that we've had up to now. That's what excites me as a user.
Particularly because you need the weirdos. That's the first people you need to call. You need to call the weirdos who are just going to grab a camera like this and screw around with it and create the kind of content that you can't imagine how this story or this experience could have been done in flat 2D streaming. So the more weirdos get their hands on this, the better.
Well, and I think that one of the challenges has been because the budgets need to be so big when Apple's doing it, and this happens the same thing with Meta and Apple. They're like, well, we're spending a lot of money, so we need to bring in a Hollywood director, and that all comes with their old opinions, their old ways of doing everything. Like, we have to make sure that we direct who you're looking at and everything else in old-fashioned ways of thinking, as opposed to. So there's a mixture of, to your point, there's people that we don't even think about right now that are just going to go out and get a hold of that camera and rent it and shoot crazy things, and we're going to see things that work that we didn't think would work. And then there's people like myself, and there's probably, I don't know, it feels like there's like 20 of us in the world that have done, hundreds of hours of immersive that now can do this on our own budget, just go and rent it for a couple days and shoot things that we have ideas for. And then we have, again, big productions. And again, there's other things. This isn't just making content that you would do as a movie. This is, this camera means that when they're shooting Silo or when they're shooting any project, they can take this camera and just set it down and record the recording of that scene. And that content would be better than almost everything else that we've seen so far. As I would love to just see behind the scenes shots of Silo, of Slow Horses, of any of these things. And right now, every time we've done that in the past, and I've done a lot of that kind of thing, it's an art project. Like, to get high quality, it's a thing, and this is going to be something that can be quietly put next to the camera, over to one side, and for as little extras, rather than trying to build narrative content with it, just little extras, is going to be for Vision Pro users. I was talking to somebody about this, and they were like, well, there's only 450,000 Vision Pro users. I was like, yeah, it's 450,000 people that spent $5,000 on something they didn't need. And, that's good market. And how many times have we seen streams for 2,000 people? Almost never.
So like a lot of golf coverage, a lot of yachting coverage,
high end. High end people.
Well,
go ahead. Well, I was just, it brings up something that I hope that we get to, and may as well get to it here, where I'm so fascinated by how the fact that now everybody has a really good quality video camera in their pocket at all times and access to nonlinear editing has generated such a groundswell of innovative filmmakers. Even the people who are just making stuff for themselves and sharing it on streaming, that wouldn't have happened like in our generation, where yes, even though we had camcorders, we didn't necessarily have the permission from mom and dad to take it out skateboarding, and then like even editing it would have been a real problem, and then publishing would have been a real problem. And so this is why getting this sort of technology in more hands and more weirdos is such a good idea. But there was a rumor that was started off by The Information like a couple of months ago, and kind of was bolstered by a supply chain rumor this week, that Apple is considering putting like a Pixel style camera bar like on the next iPhone or a future iPhone. And the thing that, after thinking, well, I wonder why Apple would even consider doing that, the only thing that I thought of was, well, if you're trying to continue to promote the iPhone as, hey, this is something you can actually shoot 3D capture 3D video with, having the camera bar on this side would allow you to have wider interocular distance on the cameras. What do you think of that? And again, and also I realized that you'd also have to be shooting pretty much everything vertical, but does that make any sense?
I think that it makes all of it. Many of us have been talking about wanting to move, having it, even two of these on either side, but definitely the width. If you look at the width here, it gets very much closer This gets much closer to my interocular distance, the interactive distance, if you grab those two corners. And a lot of us would love to see those two corners being used. And I don't care. I mean, because we have so much resolution now. You could shoot vertical and get the stereo version. You know, like you could get the 4K per eye with two that are on either end. I think that we've been drawing that up and sending it to people for a decade. Like as soon as the hydrogen came out, you know, the hydrogen that you have one and I have one, those were, you know, we saw the possibility of what was there with the hydrogen, and we were just like, we just need to spread those out, you know. And the same thing that's here. And I've actually built rigs with two identical iPhones that are one's upside down, so the two of them are so I have printed rigs that look like that, right? Mm-hmm. And so we can record them, and I can record stereo. The hard part is syncing the two cameras up is a thing.
Right.
So, but that's what you want, and you're 100% correct that would and I think that Apple. I don't think Apple expected as many people to play with spatial as they did, and I think that now it has more attention. But if it's a bar, that bar is probably 2027 at the earliest. If they've decided to pivot. 2027, 2028 would be the first time we'd probably see it. I'd be surprised if we saw it any faster than that.
Yeah. The only reason why I've been skeptical about VR headsets as like for consumption devices for content created specifically for spatial video is that it's such a rare bird to see something that actually makes me think, wow, this is much better than having like a flat picture. I mean, it just seems it feels like, okay, there's an extra dimension to this, but I don't see a change to the storytelling. But the idea of having like the sort of thing where people can start off shooting again with a much better like device, like an iPhone with a horizontal bar, but then move up to something that's more prosumer. I'm thinking that maybe I'll start to see a lot of people who are, again, just because they're doing nothing but shooting spatial video all day long after school and every weekend, and basically learning storytelling from the ground up from this, that really could get me interested in this.
I feels like that, you know, I'm the skeptic, of course, on the Vision Pro, but it feels like when you said the behind the scenes stuff, Alex, that the things that would be most naturally fit the Vision Pro experience would be something you would want to see in person. Like being on the set as they shoot Silo, or being on a courtside at a basketball game, or at a theater or a performance. Those things seem like they lend themselves very well. What doesn't seem like it lends itself well is storytelling, is feature films.
I think that people will create storytelling that's inside of this. That is, you know, I think that there are definitely places where I think it's going to start simple because it's just we're figuring out the language. We're still kind of crawling down that path of what works and doesn't work. But I definitely think, because I think the problem is we keep on thinking that we're going to use the 180-degree frame, but that's not advisable. It's somewhere between a 90 and 120 is about and that's really just still kind of a movie frame, and you can, you know, cut between those things. And I don't think the close-ups are working very well, and big wide shots don't work as well. But there's a lot there. And I think what you'll start to see with this camera coming out is that you'll start to see people experimenting with short films. I think it'll start off with like 3 to 5 minute narratives and 8-minute narratives. And if we don't think that we can tell a story, just watch Apple's ad about the AirPods or the first 10 minutes of Up, or, you know, like you can do something in a very short amount of time that generates emotion. And so I think that there's that you can definitely tell these short little stories with these things. And I think the other thing, to get back to what Andy was talking about a little bit, is I'm shooting the 3D. I shoot a lot of 3D footage, and especially of my daughter's in all these bands that she plays, and I shoot all that in immersive, because I know that AI will make this immersive look completely different 10 years from now. So I'm gathering data that I don't know, you know, like that, having a stereo image, a video image of content that you're interested in doesn't mean that it always has to be at that resolution or anything else in the future. I think one of the problems really with the spatial camera on the phone is that Apple's display of it is so bad in photos. Either I have debris on top of it, or I have this weird soft thing that is just unusable I just hate that view. And otherwise, or I can't get rid of the debris, and I just want a clean image. That's why I use Stream Voodoo to watch everything, because I'm kind of like, I just want to see it just the hard frame and make it as big as I wanted to make it. And Apple trying to protect us from ourselves is a good example. This is a good example of them not creating something that's that compelling because they're so afraid we're going to see edge violations or other things that are there that they're not giving us what we really want. And so I think that that's limiting the usage of it a little bit. But I think it's exciting. And again, I think that I think when this camera comes out, I think I think they'll sell as many as they can make. And I don't think it'll be very many. I think it's a very hard camera to make. And I think it's going to come out slowly, but it'll come out of the gate at 50 or 100 of them. And you're going to start to see, by the summer, you're going to start to see some great content. If we're able to get a hold of one, we're going to cover NAB with it. Like if they, wow. Like if we can get a hold of one for the show. So, I mean, a lot of us are pretty excited.
That's a good example of somewhere you'd like to have that.
Oh my gosh. And what we've been perfecting is, ambisonic converted to 5.1 or back to binaural. And so we've been working on this pipeline to allow us to re-embed, that. So what we're going to be able to do is deliver back eventually with this camera or another camera like it, be able to deliver back to you this feeling that you're there because you can hear everything around you, along with this more spherical view and the stereo view. And I think that expos are a great example of something that people would want to do.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we live in interesting times. Good on Apple. They took a big chance with Vision Pro. And it seems like things are starting to move along. And
I think that what you're seeing is a certain level of will and funding that's required to make this work. Is they're creating the environment. They're not, they're creating the future. They're not waiting for it. They put out this piece, and this camera is exactly what needed to happen for them to start generating much more content. I think that there's more to do. I think especially around the interactive stuff we've talked about in the past, being able to make something like JigSpace more cost effective on the graphics side. But you can also see why it's important for them to own their own editing software and everything else is because they're going to be able to implement things at the speed that they want to, but they're also, working hand in hand with Blackmagic to do a lot of and that's going to help push the industry forward because no one wants to fall too far behind. That's the thing is that Blackmagic and Final Cut using it and Apple using it forces Adobe and at least Adobe to think about it. And I don't know if it forces Avid to do anything. They kind of have the market they have, and they're not getting any bigger or smaller. But I think
you see Google releasing as Jason said, the new Google XR, and there's definitely more believers in the industry than there might have been before Apple. Yeah, and it shows you because Meta, of course, has had this out for ages, but without putting all the wood in those arrows, as Apple has done, you don't make much progress. So,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
And it really is like competition is what fuels perfection and innovation, or at least as close to perfection as you can get. Because first set that had some success was the Metas, which were very, very limited in what they can do. It mostly turned out to be mostly a gaming experience. Then the next one to make a big splash was Apple's Vision Pro, which is like, oh my God, this is like the the highest quality components you could possibly make one of these things out of. But it feels like it's super, super overkill. There's still no reason for it. And now Samsung partnering with Google, this headset that seems like it's in some ways reacting to a lot of what they've seen out there, which is we're not going to give you the magic fake eyes in the front. Maybe the specs are not going to be as good as what you see on the Vision Pro, but maybe it'll be more affordable and more accessible, and it'll be available on like a more widely available platform. He said very much aware that this was more of a teaser announcement than here's the date, here are all the specs, here's the prices.
This is
everything.
Roughly equivalent to Meta's announcement of their Orion glasses, right? I mean, we're still at least a few years off.
They're saying no, actually that's not it. There's on both the glasses and the Samsung headset. I think that both companies were saying 2025, assuming late 2025. And again, go guess what the price is going to be, or whether it's actually going to be any good. But I thought it was a good pair of announcements.
It's 10 years after Gear VR and the Daydream.
Well, and the trick
they've been doing this for a long time, right?
And it does mean that Google has a lot of 3D content already on YouTube that most of it's like 8 to 10 years old, like behind the scenes of a TV show that got canceled like 11 years ago. But still, they have been thinking about it for a while.
And the tricky part is that Apple has raised the bar. So it's kind of like if everyone wants to play by creating this expensive headset, regardless if it's expensive or not, if you walk into an Apple store and you put that headset on and you watch it for a while and then you go back to another headset, you're going to know the difference, and it makes it much hard. It doesn't mean that people won't buy the other ones, but they'll know that they're buying a Honda and not a BMW very clearly, and I think that Apple, I think, wanted to do that because it just makes everybody have to play a lot harder to, everything's more expensive and everything's harder to do to try to get anywhere near what Apple's doing. It doesn't matter whether the price is there or not. It's just the effect of, of where it goes. And I think that content creators are going to want to, especially folks out of LA, what they want to see is their stuff in a Vision Pro. I think that, and I think that,
but Google has YouTube. And if you're a content creator, you're very aware of the fact that all the channels are shrinking down to YouTube. And if you can do something for YouTube,
it could work.
As a content creator, I'd be much more interested than that, right?
Maybe
than saying, well, you got to buy a $3,500 headset. And
again, there's a market there. There's the folks that spent money on it. It's not a bad market. If I can find 10, like for me, there's a lot of content that I look at that if I can find 10,000 people with a Vision Pro, I just have to be able to get a hold of them. That's the hardest part, is being able to have a mailing list that just says, hey, we're doing a concert with Toad the Wet Sprocket or the Verve Pipe or Billie Eilish, and it's $20 a person to sit there. There's a big chunk of the people who spent $5,000 on a Vision Pro would tune into a band that they barely know just to see the content, what the content looked like, and that's again, not the people who don't have it, but the people who do have it, are desperate for content. I think that's going to be the opportunity of this camera, is that there's going to be a bunch of content coming out and it may cost a little bit of money to do it so that people can pay for the productions. And I think that there's people are I would pay for experiments because I spent a lot of money on this and I want to see something, I want to see the new thing, and again, I don't think it's for everybody, but there's 450,000 people that bought something they didn't need.
And what Google does will be McDonald's compared to your, high-end dining experience. But McDonald's will sell a lot more hamburgers.
But if you can build content and vend it on Samsung and vend it on Meta and vet it on Apple, you're going from 500,000 potential viewers to a few million potential viewers, and that makes a difference. I mean, it makes a big difference. I saw an ad the other day for X Stadium, which is like live immersive sports on MetaQuest. And I haven't tried it. I'm gonna try it out. But I thought, well, that's interesting. But again, it's a platform play where it's only on that platform, and that's great when we're in this experimental phase where that's going to happen. But one of the things that I think will make, if anybody's going to invest time and money into this, if you can reach 5 million, headsets instead of 500,000. Boy, that makes a big difference. It might not make it a great business deal, but it certainly would be worth the investment if you knew you could roll it out across multiple platforms. Even if the Apple platform is better in some ways, just to say, yeah, but we'll also be there on all the Quests that are out there and whatever Google is doing. I think that the problem is doing things just for Vision Pro at this point is a tough sell for a lot of people who aren't getting backed by Apple money.
And again, I look at it as as someone who does, like, for instance, concerts, is, I look at multipliers. If I put $1 in, how much more than $1 can I get back? And if I can figure out how to make that work, it works. So if I spend, $20,000 on a concert, now if I decide that it's a single camera, I build a set that's going to stay the same. It's going to be kind of like Tiny Desk. Tiny Desk, by the way, would be incredible on the Vision Pro.
Yeah.
I know. It just popped into my head when I said that. I was like, why is not Apple not talking to Tiny Desk? Like that would be huge. Anyway,
Tiny Desk, tiny audience. But go ahead.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that
I agree with you. I think I would love it. I would, like I said, any performance, anything where you would want to be sitting there looking around is a natural.
But specifically, the reason that, again, I'm now riffing because I've just thought of Tiny Desk. I haven't thought about it before this. is that the action area that you want to live in for immersive is 5 to 20 feet.
Right.
And that's what Tiny Desk is. If you could put a camera in there to do that.
For people who don't know, it's an NPR music thing.
But anyway,
by Bob Boylan, who, by the way, was a longtime listener. He's retired. But Tiny Desk goes on, and they have new and established artists performing in front of a tiny desk.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so but
it would make an excellent place for that. I think you're right.
If I built a space that's really built around the Vision Pro, and I figured out how to get 10,000 people to pay $5 or $10 to watch a show and have these kind of intimate experiences with artists, it doesn't matter that I only can get 10, all it matters is the 10,000 that pay, and so
here's the Tiny Desk, by the way,
the potential audience is
what
not
they
as
don't
important
show
as
is
the
there's
actual
actually
one.
an audience on the other side of that desk.
Oh yeah, it's a huge room. It's like 100 people there.
But it started behind Bob's desk, and now it's kind of expanded. That's pretty
big
cool.
old desk now.
Big old desk now, but it's still. But it's exactly what you're talking about, Alex. A constrained environment, just right. 20
But
feet.
the one thing I wanted to jump in on that is that I don't doubt that you're right, that there's an audience for that. But that means that if your market is a small audience of people who all spent $3,500 on a device without an obvious use case, who basically had enough money that I want to be an early adopter. Hey, I want to try this out. Hey, this might be fun to have. It doesn't matter if I kind of eat it for $3,500. The group of people who are going to be spending $20 to watch a band, it's probably not going to be Rage Against the Machine. It's probably not going to be like anti-capitalist, eat the rich sort of band.
I don't know. I mean, all
I'm getting is that like the content. If you're designing content for that kind of market, you're kind of limited to, okay, we can't have the Pete Seeger singing about justice and
I think you're making a pretty big generalization given the fact that
no, I'm just saying that
I'd be the first person to
I
buy.
foresee a lot of golf, a lot of yachting.
Maybe I don't know if that's the case. I mean, for the people that I know that have the Vision Pro, I mean, I'd be the first in line to buy a ticket to see Rage Against the Machine in front of a Vision Pro, and so it'd be the bunch of times I've seen them already. So anyway, I don't know if that's the case. And I think that number one is that I think the problem that Meta has is that Meta is constantly trying to, and Apple's doing this a little bit at the same time as well. They're constantly creating content for the target market of what they want from acquisition. So Meta sold all these headsets to people who are 25 to 50, and they make all their content for people who are 18 or 16 to 22. There's all these hip people, and the people who bought the Meta Quest is not those people, and they keep on not serving them with any content that they want to see. And so I've talked to people who have, and I look at like who's coming out, and I'm like, I don't even know who that is. Like for the most part, I don't know who the band is, and I'm not interested in even going for free to the Meta Quest ones because it's just like, okay, whatever. And so I do think that there's an opportunity, and I don't think it has to be again, I don't think that has to be necessarily yachting and everything else. There's a ton of 80s, 90s,
Andy's impression of what rich people do is a little bit dated.
I retract a course concept, and we'll substitute it with, you have to make content that is for the community of Apple Vision Pro users, as opposed to, hey, we just want to do, it doesn't matter who the audience is, we're going to we have a great idea for a movie and we're going to do it, or short, or concert,
I think that's
or whatever.
The case everywhere. I mean, I think that when you look at theaters now, people don't really make rom-coms for theater anymore, or they don't make very many. That's a really hard sell in Hollywood now, and that's because the medium doesn't support that anymore. And so that's, I say every medium has its own limitations. So
we're in the middle of a big transition. We have been for decades, but this is an even bigger one, and I think feature films seem to be suffering as well. So
the good news is we get to find out in 3 months.
Well, yeah, I hope I live long enough to see. It's only a matter of time, maybe another decade, before you have the same capabilities in the iPhone that you have in the Blackmagic camera. I mean, this stuff
it'll take a while. That's a hard one.
It's a lot of hardware.
It's a lot. The thing is that it's hard to replace sensor size, and it's hard to replace the subsystems and the specialties and everything else. I think that the camera may become less expensive. I mean, Blackmagic is notoriously aggressive about pricing, so 30,000 is what they can do.
How long before you put that kind of capability into the headset? Wouldn't that be the ideal way? Then everybody's a content creator.
Again,
Too hard
to get. Well, again, you can capture something in the headset right now. I don't particularly find it that compelling.
Right.
I find the headset capture to be very. I've used it once and went, I'm not going to use this anymore.
Right.
So, but
the iPhone's better than the headset.
It's so yes and no. The iPhone is a higher resolution. The headset, the interaxial distance is much better in the headset. So the 3D feels way better in the headset than it does in the iPhone. The iPhone's more comfortable to watch.
Right. But if you bought an iPhone with the quality of the camera that's in the Vision Pro, you'd be really upset because it's very clearly a low quality camera, but the 3D effect is much more natural. Right. And that's just where we are. I don't know. I mean, we talk about like, oh, this is all going to be in a phone or this is all going to be in the headset. I feel like, this is why we have a standalone camera. That standalone cameras just evolve to do all the things that don't make sense in a little compact thing. And still 2D still photos are getting better and better and better in a phone, but it's not the end of the world if we just get a cheaper and more portable and more capable immersive standalone camera that's, it's like the Blackmagic, but it's 10 years on, and that thing is whatever, $1,000, and you can just carry it around with you and shoot your kid's basketball game.
With most content these days on YouTube, is it created in a camera?
I mean, the stuff. So the progression always seems that people start with their phones, and then they progress to a Sony camera. Sony just owns Sony just owns that world, and so they progress to a Sony camera, and then I mean, I think Justine and Marquez are using Reds, or they have them, and so they go right back to the same level of production that you see in, when you get to 5 to 10 million followers, you're back to Hollywood specs or higher than Hollywood specs in a lot of cases. I mean, Marquez Brownlee, I think, is doing 4K 60 for everything that he does, or many of the things that he does, but he still grabs a phone and does it. But I think that I am interested in seeing 28 years later because I haven't gotten a chance to look at it yet, but that was all shot on an iPhone. Yeah. It was funny. I watched the trailer. I was like, what is weird about this? And I couldn't figure it out. And then I was like, and then I read the thing. I was like, oh, it's right. It's shot on an iPhone. So,
I just want to point out that Apple, which only recently broke the $2 trillion company mark, Scooter X just posted its market cap is now $3.828 trillion.
Yeah.
It's approaching $4 trillion. And they were up this year 31.5%. So regardless of regardless of what we say, Apple is on at least from the stock market's point of view, a roll.
Well, and I think that as you look at the headset, you just have to realize you're in year 10 of a 20-year plan, and it's going to be a 10 more years. Like it isn't. They're not gonna. This is Apple. This isn't like Google timelines. This is Apple timelines, and this is going to grind for quite some time.
I got a question on one of my other podcasts the other week that we didn't have time to answer. That was, is the Vision Pro the Newton? And I said, okay, here, yes, in a way, it is, because the Newton was too early. The difference is the Apple that did the Newton
had no money,
was going out of business. Yeah, had no money.
Yeah.
Today's Apple can afford to make the Newton and then just keep spending on it until it becomes the Palm Pilot and then it becomes the iPhone, right? Like that's the whole strategy here.
It is a big difference.
There is nobody inside Apple who thought we're going to release a $3,500 headset and it's going to be a hit and we're going to win and that's the end of time, and then I smell you later. I'm going to cash in my stock. That the only explanation for this product is that it is a long-term play because they think it may be that something like this is the computing of the future, and so they can afford it now, right? I mean, they may get pushed back, just like Mark Zuckerberg did, for spending a lot of money on a product that doesn't seem to be there yet. But Apple and Mark Zuckerberg actually agree that it's worth spending money on this because if in 2030 or 2040 or 2050, all the things we rely on our smartphones to do now are things we just wear on our faces as a pair of glasses or stick in our ear or whatever it is, or are in a drone that is beaming images into our eyes, whatever it is. and you're a billionaire with a giant tech company, you would be remiss not to be investing in making that future happen so that you could be a part of the, a part of the tech cabal that runs that platform, whatever it is. And so I think it's year 10 of a 20 or 30 year plan. You're absolutely right.
And a lot of these companies are definitely going to be guessing wrong. So it's
for sure,
and that's not a problem either. Again, Zuckerberg earlier on was saying, "Hey, look, everybody's going to live as an avatar." Saying, "Maybe not."
I want legs. I need legs.
And Apple was really again, even though I absolutely agree with you that there was no smelly later. Thanks for their runaway success. I also think that they thought that boy, the developers, as soon as they get their hands on this, so they're going to embrace spatial computing. They're going to do this, and everyone said, "Wow, I really love the virtual screens. I can't get enough of virtual screens." Like, really? That's all you're doing?
Well, and I think that's been the problem.
And so that's why we're going to see iterations. But I think you're all absolutely right in that it's worth Apple putting the investment into learning about how these devices work, learning how to write APIs that developers can take advantage of, so that by the time like the ball stops spinning in the top of the funnel and actually drops down into a successful product, they have everything that they need in order to take advantage of that successful product.
And the only way to find that is to do it. And so the thing is like, like for the watch, like everyone had opinions about what the watch was going to do, but it turns out health and timers is what makes the watch watch, right? So like, that's it, and Apple's double and tripling down. I don't think that's what Apple had planned for.
Right.
No.
When they made the watch, but
you don't hear wearable computing a lot in the ads in the market.
No, well, it's this truism that Apple doesn't listen to focus groups, but it's also true that Apple does listen to customers, and pays attention to how customers use their products. And Andy, I agree. I think one of the other untold stories of the Vision Pro launch is Apple assuming that it had enough cred as a platform launcher that developers would rush into Vision Pro. And a few did, but a lot of the people that Apple has cultivated as developers are there because iOS is so huge and they can make a lot of money. And that's not true with Vision Pro. And that goes back to what I said last week about how I think Apple's just not wired to launch a developer kit. And so they launched this thing as if it was the greatest new platform, and they can't think any other way. But it's not. This is much more if you want to build software or make content for this platform now, do it because you want to be one of the people who understands it when it gets big in 5 or 10 years. And that's a scary investment because, like Andy said, you might be wrong, but that's what you need to do.
And I have to admit, my previous company made millions of dollars on me fiddling with something for years. And so I had all the pieces laying there, and suddenly someone looked for somebody that knew how to do it. And I was like, oh, I know how to do that. and suddenly we're in production. And that was for the last push in 3D, or the first push in 3D in the aughts, and then the next push in 3D and spatial in the 2015 range. In both cases, I had been fiddling with something for a couple of years and working on it, and then it was a product, and then it wasn't. Like it was there. There's a whole bunch of business, and then it went away. And so I think the mistake people make is going, well, this is not going to be here in 10 years. Who cares? It's here right now. Is there production to be done? Absolutely. I mean, there's still, even though we don't talk about the Quest very much, there's still millions of dollars of production being done for the Quest right now. There's still people doing projects for a lot of these things. And so I think that, and I do think that there is some kind of wearable that's going to make sense 30 years from now when everything is in quantum computing and all the chips are 1/10 or 1/100th the size they are now. But you don't understand people's behaviors until you've interacted with it for years. And I think the only way, I think Apple knew more than anything else that they will not be able to catch up with Meta if they don't get in right now and have people interacting with something that they built. Best foot forward. Don't worry about the price. Figure out what people do with it, and then keep moving forward from there. So I think it's a valid solution.
And that concludes your Vision Pro Hour.
Now you see, now you know, we're done talking the Vision Pro.
Wow. An hour.
Exactly.
We'll come back
for Christmas.
We'll come back with more in just a little bit. You're watching MacBreak Weekly. Of course, this is a big story, a huge story, with Jason Snell, Andy Anako, Alex Lindsay. Our show today brought to you by the folks at ZocDoc. I hope you are having a healthful, pleasant holiday season, but if you should get a little tummy ache or a little headache or something going wrong with you, you don't want to take chances. Some things in life, it's okay if they're a total crapshoot. trying a new kind of milk in your coffee. I hear they're making it out of pecans now. or buying things in the middle of the night from Instagram. It only gets worse. Or gas station sushi. There are things one just doesn't want to take a chance with. And that most important thing is your health. Finding the right doctor should not be luck of the draw. Fortunately, you got ZocDoc, and it's not, because ZocDoc gives you all the options, everything you need to find the perfect physician for you. It's a free app, also a website, ZocDoc.com/MacBreak. You can search and compare high-quality in-network doctors, choose the right one for your needs, click instantly to book an appointment, because when your head hurts, you don't want to take the time. And I'm talking about in-network appointments that take your insurance, more than 100,000 healthcare providers. And it's not just MDs, it's everything from mental health to dental health to eye care to skin care and so much more. I've used ZocDoc to find geriatric care for an elder in our family, and it really was a great way to find a doctor near us who took our insurance, but most importantly, who had great reviews, because ZocDoc has verified patient reviews from actual patients. Not just whether a doctor's great, but whether a doctor has the style you want, offers the services you're looking for, that kind of thing. So you can filter for doctors who take your insurance. You can filter for doctors who are located nearby. You can filter for any doctor that's a fit for the medical need you have. But you can also filter for doctors that are highly rated by verified patients. Plus, ZocDoc appointments happen fast, typically within just 24 to 72 hours of booking. You can even score same-day appointments. So if you're not up to speed today or any time during the holidays, don't put off those doctor appointments, and don't take a chance by going phone roulette in the phone book. Does anybody have phone books anymore? I don't know. Don't Google it. Go to ZocDoc.com/MacBreak to find and instantly book a top-rated doc today. ZocDoc, ZocDoc.com/MacBreak. It's free. And it's a great way to find exactly the right physician or doctor for you. ZocDoc.com/MacBreak. We thank them so much for their support of MacBreak Weekly. You support us too, of course, when you go there. ZocDoc.com/MacBreak. Tim Cook earned his $63 million a year last week. On Thursday, he was visiting with King Charles III at Apple's UK headquarters. There they are, walking down the reception.
That's even more impressive. He made him come to his turf. He doesn't have time to go to Buckingham Palace or anything like that. Come on, he's the CEO.
No, come to the Battersea. Well, this was the Battersea Power Station Apple store we were talking about, which is, I think, actually pretty cool.
Well, it's not just Apple Store. It's that's where Apple's UK headquarters is. All their offices are there.
It's quite beautiful.
It's this historic building that used to be a power station. So it's
So I think that's probably why the prince.
He met with the prime minister the day before too.
He met with Trump the next day at Mar-a-Lago.
Well, he's flying home. It's on the way. Right?
It's on the way. I'll stop off in Florida.
Sure.
Have a little well-done steak.
He's going from right to left. Yeah, that's true.
Who do you think was the better conversationalist? I'm gonna guess the president-elect, but who knows? You know. They also gave King Charles a plaque made out of, Andy, say it for me.
Aluminium. It looks like it's beautiful. It's impressive. It's it's like this, almost like a manhole cover, like of disc of aluminium. And I just want to imagine, like, in the royal, like, gallery of, like, 300 years of royal gifts, all this Rococo stuff, all of these, like, detailed, and then, like, 2024, it's like a round minimalist disc of
with his name on it. That's the funniest thing.
And you kind of have to look at it at an angle to see the engraving. I mean,
if he forgets his name, he can go down in the basement and find the plaque.
It is the year 10,000. Archaeologists unearth the only trace that is known for this strange era of history. We know nothing about this man, but his name. He was King Charles.
The weirdest part of it, you can't see it in that picture, but there's actually like a little loop so you can wear it on a chain. I think that's improbable.
I doubt it. By the way, look how sartorially perfect His Royal Highness is with his double-breasted frock coat or whatever that is. And then Tim's wearing it looks like kind of a pea coat. I don't know what. I don't know what he's wearing. I guess it was cold at the Battersea Power
It's a long way
Station.
from Alabama. Wow.
Yeah,
but also you're you're always going to look like crap.
You got to look rumpled next to the king. You can't help it.
I mean, I'm not even joking. Like when I was looking at these pictures, like I couldn't help but notice, like, my God, the tailoring on Charles's suit is
perfect.
so. Nobody gets a suit that's tailored so perfectly as that.
Tim, hie thee to Savile Row, my friend.
Yes,
you can get War Eagle embroidered on the inside. That's okay. But wow, yeah. Even in this shot, Tim's suit looks just a little more rumpled than the king's.
Yeah.
Of course, the king also knows how to hold his arm at the perfect angle. Yes, that's right. My favorite saying, somebody said that it's interesting being the queen. Everywhere you go, it smells like fresh paint.
Yes.
Yep. And I think that's probably the case, right?
Yeah.
I don't know why the entire world smells like Sherwin-Williams, but it does. Yes. Anyway.
That is kind of an interesting thing. Like your impression of the world is
true, though.
Very clean.
It's always clean and freshly painted.
Probably not used to bad smells.
I'm thinking Mar-a-Lago probably didn't smell like fresh paint, but I could be wrong.
Probably smelling like expired frying medium. that kitchen needs an inspection, I'm guessing.
By the way, while he was there, Mr. Cook. Did Mr. Cook give him the envelope of money? I don't remember. The envelope has arrived from Mr. Zuckerberg, Mr. Pichai, Mr. Bezos.
Yeah.
All have donated $1 million to Trump's inaugural fund. So has so many other companies. But it doesn't look like
he just works there.
Yeah. I mean, that is distressingly traditional, no matter who the new
I know. You always do that. And it's the inaugural, so it's like you're giving it to America.
There are no limits on how much you can contribute. Right. B, you know that this person won. So there's no betting on it.
That's right. It's not a bet.
Yeah.
It's a sure thing. This horse has won this race.
And especially with this one, this horse is particularly feisty if you don't give it some hay.
You want to calm him down.
Transactional.
Yes. Apparently, according to Phone Arena, Tim Cook showed King Charles a specific. So Tim Cook was overheard talking to Charles about Apple Intelligence. The feature that really got the king's attention was Image Wand, which can turn a rough sketch into an image. Oh God, it's not fair, really. Fantastic, said King Charles, according to the Standard.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. How did you do that? Show me again, Timmy. Yeah. Show me again.
There was a video of, fortunately it seemed like almost like raw video of like him doing what he does when he visits like a store like this, which is like all the employees like lining up, dressed, looking fancy, but as fancy as they can dress without looking like they're dressed fancy, and having the 30-second conversations in which you really, really have sympathy for people on both sides, where King Charles has to give these people their moment, because if he gives the slightest withering twitch, that's going to devastate that person for the rest of their lives. And so there were. Meanwhile, the store manager was trying to have the conversation. Oh, and we were employing so many people, and she tried to explain Swift playgrounds, I think, in the context of, and we're teaching people how to code using Swift and Swift playgrounds.
Yeah.
And he did seem, his practice at sounding engaged.
He's very good at that.
He did seem engaged, and he did seem like a very friendly chap to meet up with.
Fascinating, yes. How do we like 18.2? 18.2 came out this week. How do we like the image playground?
It almost never does what I want it to.
It's terrible. Let's face it.
So it's. I mean, sometimes you get a cartoon version that's kind of like what you asked for, but I mean, I like the idea of, I'm going to give you 3 different. Like, it's got these little circular things of this plus this plus.
Yeah,
this.
yeah. The interface is actually pretty good.
I think the interface is good. I think it's creative compared to all the other AI things that I've used, and it lets you kind of iteratively build things.
Yeah,
but it just doesn't produce the things that I want, which I think is the funny thing is the interface is really hard, and Apple can backfill like how much better it is over time.
Right. You can make it smarter.
I have a lot of faith that this will get better. I love where they went as far as the creative process. It's just not painting anything that I want yet, but it's not,
So
I
this
agree,
is
Alex.
this is what it thinks I look like, which I disagree heartily. This is what it thinks Paul Thurrott looks like. That actually does look more like Paul Thurrott as a Superman. And then this is Jammer B, because we were talking about Pink Floyd's The Wall. So I said, give me Jammer B in front of a wall. And it did. It did a pretty good job. And actually, you can recognize it's John. Me? Do you think that looks like me, really?
I think no one thinks that any of these look like themselves. Like, I don't think that looks that much like you. I think that has been one of the things, like,
It's on device. Is that the problem?
I don't know. I mean, the issue is I wish it would actually dumb it down more than it does. If it took me and made me look like a memoji, like really like that simple, I think less of us would go, this doesn't look like me. Like my memoji.
It's doing too good a job, you're saying.
It's actually too, since it can't really hit us, just go back, simplify it more.
Right.
Yep.
Because all I want to do is have me doing something funny, but I want the memoji version of me. I don't want
more cartoony.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
By the way, there is in the upper left corner of the little picking interface, you can choose an appearance, it's called, which is, I missed this feature entirely.
Show me
not
where.
Obvious. So if you tap on to pick a person, choose upper left, it says appearance. That is a generic person. So you can get out of the game of trying to be generating a human that and you can just get a generic person. You pick a skin tone, you pick from one of three sort of gender-ish buckets, and then it'll generate using generic people, which is, I didn't know it was there, but that's nice because I agree. It is not fun to play the game of let's try to generate something that looks like somebody I know, because it doesn't do a great job most of the time. And so you can kind of get out of that. But I want to agree with Alex. They can maybe fix their generator to be better. Yeah. But what they have done, which I really love,
the UI is fantastic.
Is build this UI, because I am so sick of AI companies trying to sell me on the idea that the command line is the future of user interfaces. They're like, oh, you just talk to a bot and tell it what you want. Well, we did that already. Then the Mac happened and we realized it was dumb to do it that way. So I love this interface. Not only are you picking kind of tokens, and then you've got an interface for people.
Here I am in a space disco.
Sure. I mean, it goes without saying. But the other thing that I think is brilliant about it is it brings you to a generator screen where the whole implication is, look at all of these things we're generating and find one that's good.
I agree.
Unlike some UIs that are like, oh, I did your picture for you and now I'm done. And you're like, well, this picture sucks. Do it again.
Right,
Apple knows that some of those pictures
the UI
are
is
suck.
fantastic.
And so you just keep swiping, and there are more of them, and you can swipe back and forth.
Yeah.
And when you close out, or when you add a token and then remove it, it remembers the images it generated in the previous set, so you don't lose them. Like the whole UI, this is Apple really at its best, is the UI here. The problem is, that the images it generates aren't very good. Yeah.
Well, like UI though, spectacular. So they can always make that better, right? I mean,
the UI is the hardest thing to come up with, in my opinion, and then the AI stuff will follow behind it. But I think that it's definitely you can see where it's going to go, and I love where it's going to go. It's just not there yet.
Yeah, and they did a very smart thing by calling it the image playground, implying that you're not going to, it's not going to stick and coin, get a picture. It's no, you're going to play with this and get the stuff that you want. Yeah,
I will say that because everything is so solid, and some of the things that pop out are so kind of cartoony and very object oriented, I kind of feel like there's some point where we start being able to generate 3D objects faster than in other places, because it's really knows a lot about that, or it's really building that into the process. And so saying, like, giving me a cupcake, the cupcake looks very, very like solid, and so the idea that it gives me a 3D model of a cupcake probably isn't super far behind.
Yeah, that's why it's so hard to even tailing back to what we were talking earlier about spatial video. Like,
by the way, everybody's dog looks like that. There's one dog image in there for some reason. I don't know why, but go ahead.
I was just going to say that
spatial. Yes.
Yeah. It's hard to know how AI is going to transform everything. Like the idea of like Adobe already has a feature where, hey, here is a like 2D drawing of a cupcake. Please turn this into 3D because I want to actually be on. I want the camera to be a bit above and behind it. I don't want that full on thing. So a lot of what we're doing is not just simply, again, press the button, get a feed pellet. It's going to be like interactive and iterative. And whereas artists' tools right now are who can manipulate, who can hold the brush better, who can operate the pen nib, who can mix colors better. I think the next generation of artists are going to be people who know exactly how to know exactly how these models work and how to describe what they want to get. So it's not going to be so much about it's almost anything you can describe can become a 3D object. Almost any 3D object can become an element in like an actual video, and then God knows what happens after that.
Where do you do the thing that King liked, this the sketch pad?
That is in when you're in the pencil kit. So like you could do it in Notes or whatever, but you have to activate pencil kit, and then you draw something, and then you select the image wand tool and circle around the thing you drew and give it a prompt. And basically, I wrote about this a little bit last week. It basically uses your prompt and the thing you drew as input to try to build a model, which is nice. So like if you drew, like I drew a spaceship that I've been doodling since I was a kid in elementary school, and it kind of looks like a pyramid, but it's a spaceship. I assure you, as a 10-year-old artist, I assure you it's a spaceship. Anyway, I drew that and circled it and said this is a spaceship with rocket engines at the bottom and a capsule at the top, and some of those were pretty good, like, but it knew the shape was going to be that shape. Or I drew a frog sitting on a lily pad, and then I gave it the prompt. A frog is sitting on a lily pad made of a computer motherboard. And it took a couple of generations, but it got it. But the frog was sitting in the exact orientation that I had sketched a very, very bad sketch of a frog. So that's the idea: is that you draw a sketch that's kind of what you want it to be, and then you circle it with the image wand, and then give it a prompt. Still, it's still using text generation, but it's using what you drew as the other input, so you'll get something closer to what you were trying to draw.
Is this on 6 Colors? I'm looking through here. I see a lot about Apple.
This is in Notes? It's in our, on 6 Colors, it's in our review of the 18.2 features. You can see my frog and my spaceship.
I want to see I'm dying to see your frog.
Also a Tim Cook as Scrooge McDuck is in there too.
So it's in Notes and you draw something. I'm trying to draw something.
And anything
but
that
you have
uses
to turn on the
kit.
pencil kit.
Anything, you make a new note and then you tap the thing in the toolbar that's the pencil.
I did that.
And then you're in drawing mode, right? And so do you see the palette of tools at the bottom of the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so select a drawing implement and draw something, and then you select the magic wand, which is
that part I don't see.
Image wand. Well, I don't know if are you on there?
So this is the sketch that you did, which is terrible. You're right.
Yeah, it's a
and
really
then you said
awful
computer
frog.
motherboard and a frog sitting on a lily pad, and that's pretty good.
Yeah, and my spaceship, again, it does sort of look like a pyramid, but it sort of looks like a spaceship. And what it didn't do is turn it like, okay, here's the story. When I was turning 10, I asked my best friend's mom, or my mom asked my best friend's mom to make me a birthday cake. She was like doing custom cakes, and I gave the drawing and it specified my little pyramid guy. And what I got back was like an Apollo capsule because she didn't follow my drawing at all. And I was struck by the fact that this AI system was like, I know that looks like a pyramid, but I tell you it's a spaceship. And it's like, okay, boss, whatever it's
you
a spaceship now. But yeah, like that lousy frog is faced the right way with its legs in the right way because that's how I drew it. That's the idea.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. So this looks like Image Playground inside of Notes. I mean, it has the same kind of UI, it looks like.
It very much is, with the one difference being that you can use a sketch as input. Yeah.
Right. And so I think Apple's smart. This is going to be the kind of general image generation UI for all of its stuff. And I think this is a really well done UI. So that's good. But currently always limited to on device. Is that right? Is that your Scrooge McDuck, Tim Cook?
We don't know. I was trying to do a Tim Cook as Scrooge McDuck, and all I really got was Tim Cook wearing a blue top hat in a cave with money. Which is not quite what I was going for, but okay, fine.
It's close enough.
It's close enough. Yeah.
It's close enough. He's not swimming in it or anything, but that's close enough. And that's an animation style you used.
That one is animation style. Yeah.
Good. This is all at sixcolors.com if you want to read the review. This is the other features, Genmoji, which I was trying to do desperately before the show. And unfortunately, it looks like iPhone Mirror does not do as well as if you're actually using the phone. I think that's where the issue was.
I think Genmoji is really good. I think it's the best of these features because it's using a very limited training set, which is Apple's emoji. I do wonder, it's funny because Apple commissions an artist to build their emoji, right? There is no... people don't understand this. There's no emoji factory where all the emojis emit from. A Unicode consortium approves what the emojis are, but all they're approving is the code points and the descriptions. They're not doing it either. And so Apple and Microsoft and Google and lots of other companies they hire artists to build these emoji. So they're training Genmoji on Apple's emoji that are in there. And I wonder if maybe even other commissions that they've done of emoji that don't exist in order to feed more into the engine. It's certainly an interesting idea that they could do that. But as a result, it's super constrained. It really is constrained to make it look like an Apple emoji, but, and then you can choose a person or again, an emoji, which you can choose it to look like somebody you know, or you can choose in that same upper left corner, you can choose male, female, or neutral emoji person. And then you can say, what did I do last week? Chicken riding a motorcycle. And it's like, boom, it's a chicken riding a motorcycle emoji. Like, it just is. It was perfect the first time. And it's giving you that same interface where you can, if you are not pleased by option 1, you swipe to option 2, and maybe you refine it and add some features in. And they're a lot of fun. It's not the same as hiring an artist as somebody who actually has hired an artist to do an emoji-like piece of art, which takes time, and it's beautiful because it's got more interpretation in it because it's done by a human. But this is really easy and fun and sort of disposable, although you can also save them and then use them later. So yeah, I think it's a really good feature.
I like Dan Moore in front of all those microphones.
Yeah, that one was good.
It's good. It's very good. That's good. I think these are pretty cool. Yeah. Nice. All right. So I can expect now a lot of weird hybrid emojis in my text messages, I guess.
Probably. Good news is if you like them, I think you tap and hold on them and you can actually save them to your sticker. Yeah. And all the stickers are also emojis, which means you can use them to tap back as well as in text. So you can do tap backs of Genmoji stickers. So it just kind of keeps on going.
Lisa asked me a weird question. She said, how do you like the summarize features? And I said, well, they're okay. I like the notification summaries. Those are kind of cool. Now that we've had them for a while, what do we think of the text stuff, the summarized stuff?
It's generally okay. It doesn't blow.
This is exactly what I sounded like answering Lisa. It's okay.
It's what I expect from every feature like this I've seen over the past couple of years. And as usual, like when it's wrong, it's very wrong. Like when it screws with another features, like when it screws something up, it screws something up really, really bad. There's another story about the BBC. Complained at.
They were really upset. Yeah, BBC had a news story that Apple's intelligence misrepresented.
Yeah, it's the shooting of the executive last week. Basically, the AI summary said that the shooter had shot himself. That's like that didn't happen. AI-powered summary falsely made it appear BBC News had, and it wasn't just like the Apple saying, "Oh, here is an Apple-generated summary from Apple News on an Apple thing." It was a notification from BBC News that said Luigi Mangione shoots himself. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
it's like that's not what we said at all. And
they're not suing; they're just complaining.
They're just saying, "Hey, we are the BBC. We can make Apple look really, really dumb and make their Keynote feature look like it's absolutely worthless."
Yeah.
And meanwhile, other people are having the same complaints that were emerging during the beta, which is that great, you're supposed to be like prioritizing emails and notifications, but the more dramatic a piece of spam's subject line is, the more likely it is that you're going to select that to make sure that I see it at the very, very top of the list. So that's not something that we weren't expecting. That obviously you're going to have to be fine tuning things as you go. It just
And
shows
of course,
that
the
even
BBC
Apple
in their
wasn't
article
immune.
found a whole bunch of other examples just to show.
Exactly.
For instance, here, the New York Times, 3 different articles summarized as Netanyahu arrested. Of course, he was not.
Yeah.
So it's, I think these are problematic. I probably wouldn't trust news summaries.
Yeah. The question is, if you're Apple, what do you do next? Do you try to create some sort of heuristic that says, take it easy, be less aggressive on news summaries, or do you start sort of quietly turning off this feature for certain apps because you're uncomfortable with the output? We'll see what they do. Right now, they have remained silent, which is also really interesting since the BBC was so public about it. I mean, anybody who's used these summaries knows that they do invent things like this because they misunderstand what it's also a small. If the BBC sent the text of these articles and asked it to summarize them, I think it would do a vastly better job. But it's already a headline that's then being crammed into space with 3 other headlines or 2 other headlines. And,
That's a good point.
And so there's very little data for it to even infer what's going on here. And
a lot of surface area.
So of course you've got this going on. So it's kind of unfortunate. I do think the writing tools are pretty good. They added some features to those. So there are places where you can summarize or do things with text in a writing context that I think are actually pretty good. So aside from the summaries are of notifications or in email are a little bit different, but there are those writing tools like for people who are uncomfortable writing things, or eliminating drudgery. My friend Federico Viticci over at Mac Stories has a story about how he was working on a document and somebody he knew he was collaborating with had written this whole thing out, and he was like, I just want the headers so that I can make the same thing for my article with the same headers. And it would normally, what would you do? You would copy it and paste it and then go through and delete what the one person wrote so that you could write your thing in there. That I do that stuff all the time. So he selected it and then he went into writing tools and he said, and he pasted it and selected it and said, remove all of the content that was written here and just leave the structure with the, and press the button. And it did it. And I thought, okay,
that's nice.
That's right. It's eliminating drudgery is the best thing that user automation can do.
Yeah. And I think it'll be interesting. Go ahead, Andy.
Go. Just very quickly. Yeah, that's just adding to what Jason said. That's one of the things I use Gemini for a lot. I will just simply say, I'll cut something out of like a transcript, and it's got all kinds of like time codes and names on it, and I'll just paste it into Gemini and say, please remove all the line breaks and time codes from this, and format this as just a regular RTF paragraph, and boom, great. Again, eliminating drudgery. That's how you make me a fan.
Yeah, and I do stuff in ChatGPT where I'm saying, like a lot of times I'll have spreadsheets and I'll go, I need the spreadsheet. I need you to take this data and make it this data, and I need to take this from this spreadsheet and concatenate it with this one, and I want you to put all of this data in against these things. And I can pretty complicated solution, and it just here's your new Excel file that does all those things, right? And I think that would take me days. Like there's been a couple of them that I've been dealing with that are like 4,000 items that I have to move around. And I'm just kind of like, oh my gosh, like I couldn't do this, like I couldn't. And so it has been kind of, that kind of thing, but that doesn't exist yet in numbers where I can start to tell it, like, I want this, it's fine for them to add things that will fill out things for me in numbers of words. But what I really want is to grab onto a cell and say, I need you to go and grab this, 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 and this, and create a calculation, and then do this and explain the calculation rather than me trying to figure out how I want to, build a pivot table. And so, like that's the kind of stuff that's going to get pretty, and that it's a year or two away. That you're just going to be able to say, this is what I want, and it's going to build it, and it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, Federico said that he was already doing a thing where he had like different currencies and they were ordered in different ways, and he was able to select them using writing tools, just the Apple stuff, and say, can you format this in a table with the currencies and make sure the currencies are in the same format in all because they were in various formats, and just do that, and then right in place in his writing app, it goes boop, and it's all formatted properly, and like chef's kiss. That's beautiful.
Yeah. This is definitely an area where Apple can absolutely score ahead of Google. Like as impressive as the Google's announcements of Gemini 2.0 were last week, and it was super, super impressive. One of the most impressive things that an AI and a chatbot can do is just be an assistant that is sitting by your side and can see what you see. Imagine the ability to look at that document and simply say, hey, I want you to take the text that's in that window and do this to it. And then it just simply flicks and does that change for you automatically. As much as I am impressed by what Google is doing in AI, they are really amazing. I don't know if I would allow Google to have like screen access just as an ongoing basis, no matter how good this extra automation would be. Whereas Apple, don't trust any huge company, any huge tech company, but I would more likely trust Apple to say, yeah, you can take a look at, be watching my entire screen at this as everything I do on screen. Yes, absolutely take a look at it, because that way I can say, hey, I've got this Omni Outliner document. I want you to turn it into a spreadsheet, but I want you to add 2 columns in front of this. I don't want you to have all the headers here, and I want you to, the second indent should be actually the first item, and then suddenly watch a Google Doc like be created. Whereas this morning, creating like the show doc for us today, it's like 3 regular expressions and an export to CSV. It's like,
yeah, and pro computer users can do it, but the idea that this is what user automation is always supposed to be, but there's always been that hump that you have to get over, where you learn how to use AppleScript or shortcuts or Perl or Python or whatever, or Kotlin, you name it, and then the next step is remember that. Right. That's the next step is, hey, it's a month later and you say, remember that thing I did last month? I need you to do it again. And then you've got reusable automation, and that's the best. Right. So I'm very, and this is things, again, some of the stuff that AI is being applied to, I think it's not very good at, and that we're going to go through a period where we're like, yeah, that BBC summary based on a headline is maybe a bad idea, and it would be better to build a back-end infrastructure where it actually looks at the article and summarizes it. And, there'll be stuff we discard or practices that will change. But there's also going to be some stuff, and I think this is one of them, where it will be revolutionary, because it knows how to use, it's a computer that knows how to use our computers and can save us time, because a lot of computer work is drudgery, and computers save us from drudgery, but they also make drudgery, and it needs to stop, right? And I think that these tools will let us do less of that kind of garbage stuff and instead spend time doing what human brains should be doing.
I should point out that Lou MM, who for a long time hosted TWiT, works on Microsoft on Excel, and he's in fact in charge of Excel with Python. And there's a lot of stuff going on in Excel with AI and the Python coding language. A lot of stuff you can do. And I suspect that some of these features that you wish you had in Pages, you might already have, but you have to use Excel on Windows probably. And you may also have to use Microsoft's Recall, which would remember what you did a couple of weeks ago. Maybe not. Maybe you wish it hadn't. Apple did put all of those features, the Apple Intelligence features, into Pages, Numbers, and Keynotes last week for both Mac and iOS.
Right. And there's a Writing Tools API. So a bunch of Writing Tool stuff is now in sort of lots of
that's interesting.
Different apps.
So Obsidian or
Yeah, BB Edit's got it. I mean,
BB Edit, really?
Yeah. Anything that's, it was already in anything that used standard text controls, but there's an API so that anybody can build it in on iOS or macOS. And then they added, one of their demos initially, right, was like, oh, I'm giving a keynote presentation and I need an image here. And it's one of their use cases. So yeah, Image Playgrounds basically is also something that is tied into the iWork apps. And,
and that's going to be another big use case. That's when Gemini is available for developers. And so there was a Mac developer that had basically wired it up so that it could watch him as he codes, and doing things like Copilot stuff, saying, I need a function here that does X. And then, great, here's the function, great, now it's inside the code, saying, actually, I try to execute this code, it doesn't work, like, why doesn't it work? And because Gemini was watching, saying, oh, okay, here's a new version of the code. That's the sort of thing that makes you think, ooh, the next 5 years are going to be super interesting. It might
sound like a scene from another Godzilla movie, but Apple's giant iPad is on the horizon. Here it comes. We'll talk about that in just a moment. You're watching MacBreak Weekly. Andy Anako, Alex Lindsay, and Jason Snell. I do want to ask for some help. I wish we could do this automatically. We could automate this. What is that in my hat? There's something in my hat. There it goes. Now it's in my hand. We are doing our survey a little earlier than usual this year, so we'd like to invite you to tell us a little bit about yourself. This is what we do instead of spying on you, instead of putting bugs and things in the software or the hardware or the web pages or whatever. We just do a survey. Seems like an easy thing. twit.tv/survey. I'm going to guess it's 2025. Let me see if that's right. Survey 2025. Nope. Do you know what it is, John Ashley? What's the URL?
I believe it's just survey 25.
Oh, 25. I added a 20. Okay. Survey 25. If you go there...
Or just twit.tv/survey as well, but that works too.
Oh, that works too. Okay. twit.tv/survey. You will be sent over to SurveyMonkey, and we ask a few questions. We'd like to know you a little bit better because our advertisers want to know you a little bit better. So it's very helpful to us. Answer the questions you can. You can. I think you can skip the questions you don't want to answer. These look like you have to answer them. Is that true? I try this. Let me just see. We have added some other choices. I am not an employee or staff. I am owner, president, and C-level, and this kind of thing. And the reason this is important is advertisers want to know what they don't say, hey, tell me more about you, about this particular person. They say, how many of your listeners are C-level executives? How many of them, actually one of the biggest things they want to know, how many of them make IT decisions? Are they IT DMs, decision makers? So that's the kind of thing that's very helpful for us to know so that we could say, well, and in fact, it is a very high number. Something like 70% of our audience are IT decision makers. That's great. That's one of the reasons you hear so many IT-focused ads on the shows. That's the kind of thing that will help us going into 2025. I know we ask for your help a lot by joining the club. This is one more thing you can do to help. twit.tv/survey. It shouldn't take more than a few minutes. And it's very helpful. We do this every year, once a year, and we start a little bit earlier this year. So if you would, twit.tv/survey. More with MacBreak Weekly in just a moment. Twit.tv/survey. Okay. All right, now let's talk about the giant iPad on the horizon. This actually comes from Mark Gurman. As usual, he's got, on Sunday, he comes out every Sunday with bold visions. He says Apple wants to do a giant foldable iPad. We're not talking about something like the Galaxy Fold. We're talking an iPad that is effectively two iPads together without a crease. We're not expecting to see this for a few years, right? He does say the company's been honing the product for a couple of years now, is aiming to bring something to market around 2028. They don't want to, I don't know how you do this without a crease. So far, nobody has been able to. Samsung, Google, nobody's been able to. Prototypes of this new product within Apple's industrial design group have a nearly invisible crease, he writes, but it's too early to tell if Apple can get rid of it altogether. Would you want a 20-inch foldable iPad? And is it really more a computer at that point?
Yeah. If I were an artist, I would want one.
I want to, yeah. The big question for me is there is a totally bizarre paragraph in this story where Gurman talks about this. And one of the challenges is he doesn't know. He doesn't know. He says it's unclear. He calls it an iPad. Okay. But then he says it's unclear what operating system it will run, which is sort of like, what does that mean? So yeah, it's not yet clear what operating system the Apple computer will run, but my guess is that it will be iPad OS or a variant of it, whatever that means. I don't believe it will be a true iPad Mac hybrid. Okay. But the device will have elements of both. Okay. That's kind of sounds like a hybrid, Mark, but okay.
The key is guess. But
wait,
the key.
By the time 2028 rolls around, iPad OS should be advanced enough. You took it off the screen. I was reading it off the screen.
Show it on the screen.
Should be advanced enough to run macOS apps. What? But also makes sense to support iPad accessories like the Apple Pencil. Okay, so is he like? I really have questions about should be advanced enough to run macOS apps on iPad OS, because that is not something that's been reported before and is very intriguing to me, right? Like, wait a second. And then he says, well, it might not be a hybrid, but it might have elements of both, which also, what does that mean? So I think when he phrases this as an iPad, but there was another supply chain rumor a little while ago that said that they were making a foldable device that was a laptop. And I think it's the same device.
Right.
And so the truth is, whatever vision Mark Gurman has, and his sources are great, but like his sources don't know or can't say some of these answers, and maybe nobody knows. But calling it an iPad alone is like not sure. It's a iPad-like foldable device that might be Mac-like. If it's not a Mac, it might be iPad-like, but not an iPad, which is really interesting. And maybe it is a hybrid-ish device that is like kind of like an iPad, but also can run macOS stuff. I don't know. It's really weird, really mysterious.
He does point out that there are Windows devices already today that do something like that, including the Lenovo Yoga.
Sure, but Apple doesn't. I mean, this is the question: is like, what does Apple want to do here? Because Apple's got everything, right? They've got an OS that is a tablet. They've got an OS that is a desktop computer that could be used in a laptop. They haven't really like the thing is. Is this a hybrid? Is it a hybrid convertible? And what is Apple's vision of a hybrid convertible? Is it also is a Mac? Is it an iPad, but it can run Mac software? Is it a Mac that can run iPad stuff and have more touch? They haven't committed to anything like that. And it sounds like this product will force them to commit to something, because it sounds like it is a hybrid product.
It's weird because Apple seems to have one of its most ingrained dogmas is that there are Macs and there are touch devices, and Mac is not a multi-touch device. So if you're talking about multi-touch devices, you are talking, and with a big screen, you're talking about the iPad. And I agree with you. There's a lot of weird stuff, and if it weren't Mark Gurman talking about this, maybe I would file this to the back of the drawer. With Mark Gurman talking about this, though, you know that he has part of this story, and I'm wondering like what parts he's trying to fill in or what types he's speculating about. The idea of if you have the information, hypothetically, that Apple is developing a device that is a foldable touchscreen that is the size of two iPads, or the size of a 13-inch screen, let's say, that fold in half to create like one thing. Okay, so what is Apple building this? Are they trying to make a laptop? Well, no, because that would mean that the keyboard, half of it, would be a virtual keyboard, and ain't nobody's going to be trying to sell something that you tap just strictly on glass. Are you talking about this is a 20-inch iMac that is as portable as a MacBook? Maybe not, because you can't use the multi-touch. You can't use touch with the Mac unless Apple is planning on adding touch for that reason. So the logical thing to say is that this is going to be something like an iPad. And if your information is that this is not something they're planning in 2024, 2025, you see none of the industry stuff that says that Apple's trying to put out vendors who can create a special screen for them, at least to test with. You're saying that this could be long enough in the future that, yes, this could represent a next generation sort of device. In and of itself, though, I don't think the idea of having like a large screen iPad that folds to make it portable is a bad idea at all. That's the true hybrid between having something that's very, very portable. I mean, it gives you like the desktop sort of experience. And as I was saying that, I realized that I'm speaking to you in front of like a 13-inch MacBook with a 12.9-inch iPad as a second display above that thing. So basically, I'm obviously very, very primed to think that this is a good thing to have.
You're already there.
Yeah. So, and again, I'm sure that anyone who is using the iPad for art, of which there are many, many people, a lot of cartoonists, the idea of having like a 19-inch, 20-inch like work
canvas.
Canvas, right, would be a very, very big deal. But that's the area in which like the ditch in the middle would be a very, very big problem. For other people, it wouldn't be that much of a problem, but for that person, it would be.
Yeah, notably, the two images that they include in this Bloomberg article have hinges. The Microsoft Courier, and the Lenovo Yoga 9i both have hinges. So it's not a continuous screen. I think the most important caveat here is it's Mark with his sources saying they've been working on something for years. But it's very important to point out they work on all sorts of things, and there's no reason to think they're going to release this.
This sounds like there's a higher degree. Again, we're reverse engineering. I do a lot of that with Mark Gurman's reports. It's like, what information could he have received that would make him write it this way. And it feels to me like he's saying they're making this thing, right? Like that the hardware is kicking into gear in terms of getting ready to design and build this thing, that it seems to be that it's a go, but that he doesn't know all the details. And that's, and like I said, that's a lot of my re-engineering of that, how weird that paragraph is there's a lot of uncertainty there where probably his source is like, either uncomfortable saying, like they draw a line at what they leaked to Mark Gurman, or has not been allowed in the room. Like probably, so let's say it's probably a hardware source. The hardware source either doesn't know or knows that they've tried a bunch of stuff and doesn't know what they've settled on, if they've settled on anything. And so they can say, yeah, we're building this thing. It's probably an iPad, but I don't know, might have some Mac-like things in it. And then he has to run with that. But it does sound like this is a piece of hardware that Apple is going to build, even though we are talking about several years out now.
Yeah. And we don't know what operating system or what it would look like. I don't think it's that much of a stretch to say you could run macOS apps on an iPad. You can run iPad apps on a Mac. They're
it would be a lot more overhead in iPadOS, but you could do it, and you could even use a virtual machine to do it and have a virtual Mac that's running in the background, sort of like old classic mode on macOS when they went from 9 to 10, where you actually have like there was a little, in classic mode when they went to macOS 10, there was a virtualized macOS 9 that just ran in the background and apps appeared. And you could totally do that if you wanted to do that. Apple could do that today if they wanted to. So yeah.
They call it coherence mode when you're running Windows on a Mac.
Exactly. Same idea, right? It's a different OS, but it basically kind of layers in, and it isn't too weird. It's a little weird, but it's better than that. And honestly, I think this is one of the existential questions about the iPad is if you're pushing touchscreens into places like this thing, do you want to invest in taking iPadOS that much further, maybe? Or since you've already developed macOS, do you say... why don't we just let these things be Mac-like in Mac-like context, even if they don't say it dual boots or something like that, even if it's sort of like halfway in between? That's why I'm interested in this story so much, is that we don't know what Apple thinks the right thing to do is for a product that is really right between Mac and iPad.
How much pressure is on them to do it anyway? I mean, don't they? I've seen some people cynically say, well, they sell twice as many products. I think it was Mark Gurman who said Tim Cook likes it, that most people who have Macs also have iPads. There can't be that much pressure to combine.
I don't know about pressure, although I do feel like another thing I love about this story is I like the idea that Apple might be exploring a different kind of shape for a device, because the iPad's been here for almost 15 years. MacBooks have not changed at all.
They're pretty much perfect, though.
Right. Well, but again, if you're Apple, maybe you say, are there some other devices we could make? It's a little like how they've experimented with different sizes of iPad and different sizes of iPhone. Like, are there other kinds of Macs, right? All the competitors are making these convertibles. So I like that they're trying it, right? I like that they're exploring it. I'm not sure that whether there's a market for this product or not, but I like that they're giving it a go anyway.
People have pointed out for 15 years, Mark says, that Apple's mouse design is less than perfect. Its grip wasn't ergonomic or comfortable. And of course, the charging port on the bottom is a source of endless jokes. He says, there's good news. There's a new Magic Mouse in the works. Don't get your hopes up. It's a few years off also. But something, he said, I wouldn't expect anything in the next 12 to 18 months, but they are working on something. He doesn't know what.
Yeah, but I love sometimes these things are really great, like signal flares to see, like, how interested is everybody in this idea? Let's see how far. Let's see how widely this story goes. And my goodness, it was like all over all of my feeds. Oh my God, Apple's finally fixing the mouse. Oh my God, they're finally taking the port off the bottom. And yeah, I mean, I don't know like what Apple could do to like make a mouse competitive with like the Logitech 720 or anything that Logitech is doing.
Yeah, which has a charging port in the back so you can use the dang mouse while it's charging. Just a minor detail.
It also
Can't be
has
that hard.
It also has two other innovative features. One, it's shaped like a human hand would be operating it.
Look at that.
Secondly,
Fits
it
in the palm of your hand, kids.
there you go. It's like it's not designed to look pretty when you're not touching it. It's designed to feel good when you're using it. And also, it has mechanical buttons on it that you actually click, and I can actually pick up. Like I have a Magic Mouse, but I don't know. It's sort of
buttons.
The multi-touch surface, it looks nice as a static object. I'm not being sarcastic. It's a gorgeous object, but like I can't get through a task as quickly. I wouldn't say, no, not even as quickly. I can't get through a task with a Magic Mouse that's not at least a little bit frustrating. And that includes dumb things like I'm moving the mouse from one place to another on the desk. Oh no, now I'm looking at another desktop. That's not what I meant to do, Magic Mouse. Like the only way to make it work is to go into settings and turn off all the multi-touch settings.
Off all the features. Sure.
Yeah, please don't be anything but a mouse that responds to left click, right click, and scroll. And if I am like scrolling down and stopping to look at something and I happen to shift my finger a little bit, no, that's not an intentional thing. That's just a human hand that sometimes the fingertip moves a little bit. Please don't move me to another place. It's just such a bad thing.
But I have to wonder how many people, by the way, this is the one that came with the Mac Pro, nice and black. How pretty is that? How many people are like me, have drawers full of these things that came with Macs that they don't use because they replace them with a Microsoft mouse, a Logitech mouse, anything.
I would imagine that the bulk of people never even think about it, and they just use the default
mouse?
Apple mouse. And if they choose it, and that's why they have to make one, is because people want them because they want their computer to come with all the things, and so they make it
with a mouse. I agree.
But I will say my prediction here is that they're going to give us the same spiel that they've done for the last couple of AirPods revisions, which is they're going to come out with a new mouse in a couple of years, and they're going to say, oh, well, we did a lot of ergonomic analysis, like they changed the shape of the AirPods, and I bet they will claim that it's going to be ergonomically better, and it won't look like a polished pebble found in a stream by Johnny Ive. And it will be a little more utilitarian while not satisfying Andy, I think, is probably the most likely scenario, but that it'll be better, right? Like it feels like modern Apple is much more in the AirPods look weird, but they fit better kind of mode. And I feel like that's what a mouse would be from them now, is not for everybody, but for a wider swath of people, it would be a more comfortable device to use.
Yeah. And also I'm sure Apple knows that you can get a mouse that's conventional and really, really good, well made, well lasting for $30 or less. Cheap. So this is their opportunity to make something that's stylish, that fits in with the design language. The thing that I always think about is that, like, imagine like a very, very fancy business that has like lots of clients coming in. Every desk in the office in the back has like a Logitech mouse. The fancy iMac at the front desk with all the glass and the chrome has a Magic Mouse because it looks classy. It matches with the design aesthetic of the iMac. It makes a good impression. It's hell on the temp that has to actually push it around the desk all day long. But again, that's the price of fame.
The other thing I thought was interesting, and then, by the way, this is going to be the new home of my Magic Mouse, is right there. It fits perfectly onto the microphone. It adds just a certain je ne sais quoi to the whole arrangement. The AirTags are going to be updated. Long time coming with UWB built in. He says he's already reported this a couple of times, but he says Apple is preparing a new AirTag for next year. We've been hearing this one for a couple of years. UWB will make finding better, right?
I would like it just to support more than 32. Because I'm at the limit.
How many you have? Jeez Louise. You are the outlier, I must say.
I have 4 of them that I can't even add because they're sitting there like I was like, I was going to put that on some more things. I put them on we put them in all of our cases. So when we like if we do an event, I might have to take 10 cases and put them in luggage or ship them or whatever. And so having those AirTags in there makes it a lot easier for us to know where those bags are. I put them
I guess, built-in 4-bit identifiers, and that's why they can only do 32 of them.
I have I put them in my bag, in my travel bags, in my backpack, in my kids' backpacks, in my cars. I even have gotten into the habit now of I'm starting to, when I FedEx something to someone, I'm putting them in self-addressed stamped envelopes. I just throw it into the bag and I FedEx it to the person, and all they got to do is just take that and put it back in the mail and send it back to me. Isn't that awesome? Way I know if something's lost, I know exactly where it is.
You know where
I know when it's going to get there. Yeah. So
also Ultra 3 smartwatch, which Gurman says will have the satellite feature that's on the iPhones, so you don't have to be on a cell phone network to make an emergency call. He says it will. He says he doesn't anticipate that it will be coming to non-ultra models. It'll be a perk used to justify the ultra price, and maybe even hypertension detection, which I think is very cool. Right now, you have to use an sphygmomanometer. I'm just looking for reasons to say a sphygmomanometer to measure your BP. Isn't that funny? I'm willing to say a sphygmomanometer, but I shorten blood pressure. I don't. Yeah.
Well, is that just a blood pressure armband? Is that what
the cuff is an sphygmomanometer? Yeah.
Okay.
How many times have I said that in the show now?
I know you've got it down.
I got a sphygmomanometer down. Of course, I'm going to get an email saying, actually, Leo, that's not the name of the device. That's just the name of the cuff, the actual device. I don't know.
It's not the name of the monster either.
Yeah. I think having blood pressure, it wouldn't probably tell you what your blood pressure is, but like the AFib feature, it might warn you if there's something odd going on, I would guess. And then you use the cuff to get the actual blood pressure. That's what Gurman guesses as well. So that's ahead. That's the look ahead. Thanks to Mark.
I was just imagining your watch just getting tighter really quickly and then letting go. Like it's just like
that is such an unpleasant feeling. I don't like that at all. He also says there's a new Apple TV and HomePod Mini on track for next year. Good news.
There was a lot of protein in this week's newsletter. I think he wanted to take the next couple of weeks off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, they're moving it behind a paywall next year. You used to be able to get it for free, but they're going to move it to the weekly will be a paywall to Bloomberg subscribers. They're also launching a new product that is just
I thought you were talking about an Apple thing. Oh, you mean the newsletter?
No. Gurman's newsletter is going to be paywalled, which it isn't now. And they introduced a new product. Like if you just want the tech news, you don't have to pay the full price for Bloomberg. But as a result, I think also they're bulking up the content to make, because they're giving all the free subscribers are getting like a free preview for a month or something. So I think there's some marketing going on here as well.
Oh, that's interesting. Once again, analyst Jason Snell has the inside story. You're watching MacBreak Weekly. Jason Snell, Andy Iannacco, Alex. I think we gotta wrap it up. We haven't gotten to anywhere near the rumors we wanted to, like the thinner foldable phones and all of that. But we'll save that for another week. Our picks of the week coming up in just a bit. If you are not yet a club member, I have a pick for you. Club TWiT. This would make an excellent gift for the TWiT listener in your family. twit.tv/club TWiT. It's $7 a month. Yes, it's still $7 a month. We thought about raising the fee, but I don't want to make it impossible for people who are on a tight budget. I feel like $7, a couple of cups of coffee, it's a reasonable amount to ask for all the programming we give you. You do get ad-free versions of all of our shows. You get access to the Club TWiT Discord, which is no mean feature. This is my social network. I love hanging out in here. Smart people, interesting people. We are going to extend our opportunity to try it free for 2 weeks. And we still have the referral program, which means you can get a referral link when you sign up and share that to all your friends and get a free month for every one of them that signs up. But the most important part of Club TWiT is what is making it possible for us to continue. We do, have advertising, but advertising dollars have dwindled. I just saw a stat that said only that 50% of all the advertising in podcasting goes to the top 10 shows. 10 shows get half of all the advertising dollars. We are not in the top 10. So we don't get that. We don't get as many advertising dollars as we used to, or as Joe Rogan's getting. And That means we want to come to you, and there's all the Club TWiT members in the Discord. Say hi, everybody, and ask you to help us out. Ideally, I would love to just run on the club and nothing else. That's kind of a pipe dream, though. Right now, we have fewer than 2% of our audience is a member of the club. If we could get to 5%, maybe. I will tell you this: 2025 looks pretty. The cupboard is kind of bare. I think there's a lot of uncertainty in the business community. I'm not sure what's going on, but I think people are just waiting. They're hesitant to buy ads. So that means we are at a shortfall for even the first quarter of next year. You can make the difference. $7 a month really does make a difference. Keep these shows going. Keep our team employed. None of it goes to me. It all goes to John Ashley and Benito Gonzalez and Kevin King and Anthony Nielsen and all the people you see in front of the camera as well as behind the camera. That's who we want to keep going. twit.tv/clubtwit. Please, I beg of you, if you've got $7 to spare, send it our way. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. All right. Time for the picks of the week. Let's start off with you, Mr. Jason Snell.
All right. I have a second recording set up in the back of my house, and I do podcasts back there, especially in the winter because it's heated, something this garage is not. And but here in the garage, I have a wonderful mute switch by a company called Rolls, and it's a physical mute switch that you push a button down, and then you can hear me, and that you push it again and you can't hear me. And in the back, I have a USB microphone. It doesn't have a physical mute switch. There's a little button on it, but you got to kind of like reach around to get it. It's not ideal. So there have been apps that do this. They tend not to work the way I want. A lot of them are push to talk. They're really meant for like Zoom meetings so that you can do that. I found an app that is my favorite kind of app. It is a Mac app made with care that has lots of features. It's a version 2.0, so they've definitely listened to their customers and followed up their 1.0 with a version 2.0. And it's Mic Drop. So Mic Drop, it is a floating menu. It can be in your dock. It will show a status if you want when things are muted or unmuted.
I like the on-air light in your menu. That's cool.
You could set there are different choices for what goes in your menu bar, including one that just says on air and it says off air when it's muted.
I love that.
Super smart. Lots of feedback. It'll give sounds if you want. It'll not play sounds if you don't want. You can pick which microphones you want to have mute. And I was like, all right. And it supports hotkeys. And I'm like, okay, well, I can write a keyboard maestro macro that presses the hotkeys. And then I read on. And it was like, no. Also, they support AppleScript. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. So I can write a little one-line AppleScript that says, tell app Mic Drop to toggle. And then I read and it said, oh, you can also get the mute status from Mic Drop via AppleScript. And I'm like, oh my God. Because now I can, I have a little keyboard maestro macro on my Stream Deck, and it actually shows when it's muted and not based on the icon changes. And that's all because the macro can ask Mic Drop, what's the status? And then do the right thing and also paint the right image on the Stream Deck. It's like, again, are there workarounds? Sure. Are there ways to do this in other ways? Yeah, right. I could have worked around this in 10 different ways, but the beauty is they've already thought about all those things and they put it in here. It's free to try and for some basic functionality, and it's $5. $5 damn dollars to unlock this thing with the pro feature, the super pro as they call it features for $5. That's it, $5. It's in the Mac App Store. It's really good. They've got a website. It's actively being maintained because they just did a 2.0 update earlier this year. I didn't know anything about this app before. I looked for it because I needed it. If you have a mic that you want to have control over with a hotkey or something that is not clicking in the little mute thing on Zoom, I really recommend it. It's very good. It's in my Stream Deck now. Like, that is how I'm going to control all my podcast recording from here on. So Mic Drop, really good. Love it. I love everything about it. Love that they thought of everything and it's all in there. And then there are settings to let you turn it all on or off. And then it's $5 on top of that. Like, that's great. I wish there were more Mac apps this simple, this clear, and this well built.
Nice. And you said you've tied it into your Stream Deck. Does that Stream Deck push trigger a AppleScript, or does
that's what it does. The Keyboard Maestro macro is run by the Stream Deck because there's a plugin for the amazing macro utility that I plugged here before, Keyboard Maestro. And then, there's a one-liner. It's literally tell app mic drop to mute. Tell app mic drop to
And
unmute.
is there any latency? How quickly does it drop?
It's instant. I mean, that's the thing.
That's good.
The question I had was, well, if I use AppleScript, does it take longer than it does to do Command Option Shift M? Right, which I could have told mic drop, use a keyboard shortcut, and then I'll just have Keyboard Maestro fake that.
Right.
But it would be better because sometimes, emulated keystrokes in automation don't work, or you have to put in a pause. But the AppleScript was also instantaneous, so
That's good enough.
It's beautiful, and that's one of my favorite things about. By the way, I know I've mentioned this before, but a little side note is if you like the Stream Deck, you really should use Keyboard Maestro because Keyboard Maestro has a plugin that lets you set a button on the Stream Deck to be anything you want it to be as an action, and it allows you to create like great interactivity where you press the button and it changes to something else, and then you press it. I've got one that's a 3-state toggle where I press it once and it's streaming music to my podcast live stream. I press again and then it's recording and it shows me the icon changes, and I press it another time and it stops the recording. And it's all through Keyboard Maestro. Really great tool to use with the Stream Deck. Stream Deck software is not great. Keyboard Maestro is great. And then, mic drop just slid right on in there. Super easy to use.
Nice. Thank you, Jason. sixcolors.com.
Yes, sir.
And sixcolors.com/Jason for his podcast.
Indeed.
Alex Lindsay, your pick of the week.
So previously, I talked a little bit about Shokz. Shokz makes these headsets that I use. Actually, I have 2 of them because
they used to be a sponsor. In fact, I got the OpenCom one because you recommended it. I love it.
I have 2 of them because I use them all day.
Yeah.
So I got to make sure that one stays charged.
It's got a little microphone on it, so you can use it for calls.
And the audio, the boom makes a huge difference in quality. And most importantly, you can do the dishes well on calls and no one notices. And so...
and they can still talk to you because they're not in your ears.
Exactly.
They're bone conductance.
Which makes your wife love the headset because you're doing the dishes while you're on a call. So anyway, these are great. The boom makes a huge difference, and the open ear, I use them a lot when we're using them as comms for our shows because I can put other things in my ears or listen to them and still be able to talk on comms. But I started to swim a lot, and I swim every day now. And I needed something that was a little bit more waterproof. And so it turns out Shokz makes OpenSwim. And so these are the same as the other ones. They don't have the arm in them. Obviously, that'd be not as fun if you were swimming. But they will very safely go underwater. I've not taken them more than probably 4 or 5 feet underwater, but they seem to work great. I use them every day. So, and they have a Bluetooth mode, which is great. Does not work well in water.
Oh.
In case you're wondering, Bluetooth does not carry through water very well.
Oh, that's good.
They have an MP3 mode. So what you do is you plug them in. This has got, instead of the same power, it's got like a little communicator. So if you've got the right USB, you plug it into your computer, it shows up as a hard drive. You drop the songs on.
How much storage?
As much as I've put on. I don't know how much it is.
Filled it up.
I've got way more than I need on any given, because there's not really a lot of playlist stuff. You just kind of turn it on and it goes MP3 mode and starts playing, and so usually I just get, I graduated from my pool to a gym, 25-meter pool. So as I'm walking out, I kind of just turn it on and set it to MP3 mode. And then I'm in ready to go. They come with little, earplugs, which is great. And again, it's definitely well tested, at this point for me. And they make swimming a lot more fun. I don't know if I could. I think if my watch or my headset doesn't work that day, it's really hard to get a lot of swimming done.
Like 32 gigs of MP3 storage, which is more than enough for a couple of laps.
Yeah. Yeah, so I need it for about half an hour. So
Alex, it's also on sale right now for Christmas. So this is a good time to get some.
Good time.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Andy?
No, I was just going to say that I was on the swim team in high school, and I swam like the distance races. And so for every single practice, while all the other kids who were doing the sprints were like having fun, and I had to do like lap after lap after lap in an era where there wasn't. Yeah, it's like basically me and my thoughts for like an hour. And oh my goodness,
much thoughts.
That was a challenge.
It's so nice. It's just like, and I have the playlist doesn't change very much. So I'm kind of in a mode of the playlist, like I just get like, this is my playlist of songs and this is my swim songs. And I just kind of, and it is, I get bored really easily. So it is hard for me to otherwise do anything that's the same over and over and over again. Although I'm still avoiding, I've been doing this now for a couple of months and I'm still avoiding drowning sometimes, but but I'm getting better.
They used to be a sponsor after Shokz, or they're now just called Shokz.
It was one of the work JJ who used to work with me. He just got a better job than what we had. He's the one that kind of got me thinking about it, and someone else in office hours, John, got me thinking about it. Kept on talking about all this, and I'd never used bone induction except for like the Google Glass or whatever, and I really love it. I love the fact that
Works fine.
Like a lot of times I wear these also like if I'm shopping or I'm wandering around, and I still need to be able to hear people, but I kind of want to listen to, news over audio or some music or whatever. It's not the same quality, obviously, of putting something in your ear, but it is really nice to be able to continue to have situational awareness and be able to still listen to something else.
It's really good for audio books or podcasts because voice it's more than adequate for voice.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Thank you, Alex. The Shokz Underwater headphones. His pick. They call them the OpenSwim Pro. Andy Anatko has a festive holiday pick for us.
Yes. Now there's endless debates on what your favorite Christmas album is. I don't think that there's much room for debate on which one is objectively the best one, and that is, of course, the 1960 Ella Wishes You a Swinging Christmas. This is the Ella Fitzgerald Christmas album. It has the problem with that I have with like modern Christmas albums is that there'll be something where like maybe they'll do Jingle Bells, but then they'll be like, and then when we saw by the clock tower, what does this have to do with ho 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 and jingle? And that's fine that you're being creative, but it's like I don't want to hear the story of the poor little match girl who's selling her shoes or whatever. Okay, again, when I have my friends over, when I'm decorating the house, I want to hear Santa Claus is coming to town. I want to hear Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, and then while I'm drinking whiskey and have a little bit of a cry, I want to sing the Christmas song and basically, let it snow.
Her Jingle Bells is it's amazing what you can do with such a simple song. It is an amazing version of Jingle Bells.
Frosty the Snowman and Christmas Island. Now, the Leon Redbone version is, I think, the classic version of Christmas Island. But still, she does a very good job. But yeah, this is what people think of when they think of a holiday album. So, like, if you want to put on some holiday music, this is the one that probably will make the most people extremely happy. And you'll know what I mean.
At least for 51 minutes, anyway.
At least for 51 minutes. There's there's expanded edition also on Apple Music that gives you alternate takes of a few of the songs.
That's fun.
But yeah, it's great stuff. As I cannot put it more simply than that. That like when people are thinking, I want to play a Christmas album, this is almost certainly the one that you're thinking of, even if you've never heard of it. This is the one that you.
I would agree with you. I would agree. There is no question. Ella Wishes You a Swinging Christmas. It's 1960 she recorded that. Wow. This is our last episode of the year. We will be back next week, but it'll be a best of some of the highlights of the 2024 MacBreak Weekly year. Then the following Tuesday is New Year's Eve, and I just didn't have the heart to make you guys come in for that. So we'll take that week off, and we will be back, what is that, January 7th for the next MacBreak Weekly. Is that right? Yeah, January 7th. Everybody have a wonderful holiday. We're so glad you joined us during the year. We are especially thankful to our Club TWiT members and to our wonderful panel. Alex Lindsay is at officehours.global. You'll also hear his podcasts that he does with Michael Krasny at graymatter.show. An excellent show to subscribe to. Always interesting conversations there. Anything you want to plug?
I don't have it. We're continuing to do. We're really excited about a lot of the changes we're making right now in office hours as far as the quality and the structure and everything else. So this is just a great time to listen, and we're just having great conversations. So every morning, 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we get up and answer those questions. And it's just, we kind of took a hiatus from the second hours so that we could really focus on the quality of the first hours, and they're getting just better and better and better. So definitely ask you if you have questions around media production. That's the time to do it. I will say, not promoting my thing, but I just will say, I almost put it as a pick. Nate Bargatze's got a Nashville Christmas on Thursday. Nate Bargatze's like currently my favorite comedian. So we can't wait to see what that looks like.
But you have no involvement with that. You weren't there shooting it in 3D or anything like that.
I'm just excited. I will say that there's, you may have seen an announcement that about AMC and Rockleditz and Tata getting together.
What's that all about?
It's live transmission to theaters. So the ability to take concerts from
in VR.
No, just the theaters. Just lots of them.
Oh, like what Andy does when he goes to see the opera at his local multiplex. Okay,
yeah, but probably more. so something that's similar to that, but probably at a different scale. And so something that I'm pretty excited about, and I might be tangentially connected to. So
maybe just in a little teeny way.
Yeah. So
very cool. Happy holidays, Alex. Hope you have a wonderful Christmas and New Year, and spend time with your beautiful family. And we'll see you in January.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Andy Anako, do you do GBH during the holiday weeks?
Nope, because there's reruns and all kinds of other stuff. I've wrapped for the season, but you'll be seeing me, I think, the first or second week in January. I'm concentrating on eggnog, but
eggnog is God's gift to mankind, I must say.
If you don't like it, more nog for the rest of us. Yay.
That's right. And Lisa doesn't like it, which is fine with me. And someday soon, a website, maybe a newsletter in your future.
We've seen it. It's coming.
The live fire exercise has begun, and I'm receiving feedback, and I hope to have something to announce very, very shortly.
Nice.
It's now I'm only handicapped by I need to fill out paperwork that is really, 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 really not looking forward to doing.
What about Russian Orthodox Christmas? Are you celebrating that this year?
Actually, I usually do because in my household we would have what many households think of as big Christmas and little Christmas. The little Christmas was more like a really nice, simple family meal of like ham and stuff like that. No presents, just looking forward to
such a great idea. Big Christmas and little Christmas.
Yeah.
I love that.
And it was like this sort of like the official, and it was also the good sign that, okay, so now we'll think about taking down the tree. Now we'll think about like putting things away.
Beginning of the end. Yeah.
Because if you get, I do think that like if you turn it all off, like on December 26th, it's like, it seems like we just put that up 3 weeks ago. But Little Christmas, it's like, okay,
it turns out Little Christmas is the same time we're coming back. So January 7th.
Feast of the Epiphany. There you go. The Three Kings.
Yeah. So the Three Kings will join us on January 7th to celebrate. Maybe bring some ham.
Yes. Leftovers.
Have a great holiday, Andy.
You too. Thanks, guys.
Real pleasure working with you.
Back
all year long. And, of course, Jason Snell, sixcolors.com. One of the colors, bright red for his festive hat.
Yes.
Special times. Are you going anywhere for the holidays, or are you staying home?
Whole family's coming here.
Nice.
So I'll do some cooking, and we'll all be together, and that'll be nice.
Yeah, we're doing a Christmas Eve dinner for the family. The turkey that we didn't get for Thanksgiving, we're going to have. So that'll be. I'm responsible for that. That'll be a lot of fun. Well, Jason, have a wonderful holiday. Andy,
Thank you, sir.
Alex, it's been a real joy working with you this year, and I look forward to a wonderful and interesting 2025.
Every Tuesday is a joy for me. Thank you very much, everybody.
Me too.
It's always a great time.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We do MacBreak Weekly, as Andy mentioned, Tuesdays, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1900 UTC. There are 8 different streams you can watch. If you're a club member, you get the Behind the Velvet Rope stream in our Discord. But there's also youtube.com/twit/live, twitch.tv/twit. There's x.com. There's Kick. There's Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok. Now, I'm not sure if we'll be on TikTok much longer. I have a bad feeling about this, in which case we'll find another place. But we are on TikTok. Maybe with any luck, we'll still be on TikTok into the new year. So you could watch us live on those 8 different channels. Or if it's not convenient, or you just want a copy, you can always download a copy of the show. We have audio and video available at twit.tv/mbw. When you're there, you'll see a link to a YouTube channel. Great way to share little clips with friends and family and help spread the word about MacBreak Weekly. And, of course, the best way to listen is to subscribe. You can get audio or video in any podcast client. Just search for MacBreak Weekly and you'll have it the minute we're done fixing it up. Thanks to John Ashley, our producer, who worked hard and put together a best of. So his work for next week is done. And John will be back here January 7th.
No, I won't be.
Oh, you're going to Japan. You're on vacation.
I'm out. I'm going to be in Japan then. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very good. Who's filling in for you? Anthony?
Most likely Anthony, yeah.
Okay. Well, Anthony Nielsen's our creative director, and he does all the jobs. When no one's here, he is the one who jumps in. So happy holidays to all of you. Thank you so much for being here for MacBreak Weekly. We'll see you in the new year. Meanwhile, it's my sad and solemn duty to tell you, get back to work. Break time is over. Bye-bye. Happy New Year.